This video was made thanks to this awesome request. Thank you for the title suggestion, and happy watching.
Hey, what's up everyone? Welcome back to Curikens. If you're a fan of My Hero Academia, especially awesome fanfiction stories all about Deku, you're definitely in the right place. Before we dive into today's story, don't forget to hit that like button, share this video with your fellow anime fans, and subscribe so you never miss a new upload. Also, if you have an awesome idea or title for the next fanfiction video, drop it in the comment below. I'd love to read your suggestions. And hey, if you want to support the channel even more and keep me extra motivated to create awesome content, consider joining our channel membership. By becoming a member, you'll unlock cool perks like exclusive loyalty badges and custom stickers you can use in the comments. If you've already joined, thank you so much. Your support truly means the world to me and helps keep this channel going. Alright, let's get right into the story.
Izuku Midoriya had always been fascinated by quirks. He filled notebooks with observations, copied down combat techniques, and studied professional heroes whenever he had the chance. But there was one thing he had never expected. His own quirk was nothing like the abilities he had seen before. It began when he was 4 years old. After the doctor confirmed that Izuku possessed a quirk, his mother took him home with a strange fruit she had received from a distant acquaintance. The fruit looked unusual. Its surface was covered in swirling patterns, and its shape resembled a small fortress. Izuku stared at it curiously. "Mom, what kind of fruit is this?" Inko wasn't sure either. They said it was some kind of exotic fruit. Izuku took a bite. His expression immediately twisted. The taste was horrible. He forced himself to swallow it anyway. Nothing happened. At least, not immediately. Several hours later, Izuku was playing in his room when he suddenly felt something strange. His stomach tightened. His body became unusually warm. Then, crack, Izuku fell onto his knees. His mother rushed into the room. "Izuku, I'm okay." The strange sensation disappeared. Izuku looked at his hands. They looked normal. He slowly stood. Then he noticed something strange on the wall. A tiny door had appeared on his chest. Izuku froze. "Mom." Inko stared at him. "What is that?" The tiny door was only a few centimeters tall. Izuku touched it. Click. The door opened. Behind it was not his bedroom. There was a corridor. Izuku's eyes widened. "There's a room inside me." The discovery frightened him at first. His mother immediately took him to a doctor. The examination confused everyone. There were no abnormal organs. There was no physical mutation. Yet the strange internal space definitely existed. The doctor couldn't explain it. Izuku could create small doors on his body. Behind those doors were rooms and corridors that did not physically fit inside him. The doctor called it a highly unusual spatial type quirk. But Izuku quickly discovered something even stranger. When he touched an object and focused on it, the object could pass through one of his doors. A toy car disappeared through the door on his arm. A moment later, it rolled through another door on his shoulder. Izuku stared at it. "It went inside me." He grabbed another toy. This time, he pushed it through the door. The object became smaller as it crossed the boundary. Inside the room, however, it returned to its normal size. Izuku's eyes sparkled. "That's amazing." Over the following weeks, Izuku experimented carefully. His internal castle slowly became larger. There were hallways, small rooms, storage areas, stairs, even empty chambers that seemed to expand whenever he concentrated. The entrance was always connected to his body. If he opened a door on his arm, someone could enter his internal castle. Once inside, they would return to normal size. When they exited, they became small again until they completely crossed the boundary. Izuku spent hours testing the ability. He placed toys inside, then books, Then pieces of furniture. He discovered that living creatures could also enter. His mother was the first person to step inside. She cautiously walked through the small door on Izuku's chest. The moment she crossed it, she found herself standing in a normal-sized room. She looked around. Izuku, yeah, you have an entire building inside you. Izuku scratched his cheek. I guess I do. Inko looked around the empty room. Does this mean you can live inside yourself? Izuku blinked. Maybe. Izuku quickly realized that his quirk wasn't simply a storage ability. The rooms could be connected. He could move between them. He could create doors almost anywhere on his body. And he could control the structure of the internal fortress. One afternoon, Izuku accidentally created a large staircase. Whoa! He walked upward. The staircase led to another chamber. This room was much larger than the previous ones. Izuku looked around. This could be useful. He grabbed his notebook. He began drawing a rough floor plan. Entrance hall, storage room, medical room, living quarters, training room. He paused, then added another section. Defense room. Izuku's imagination started running wild. If his body was a castle, then he needed to know every part of it. He could store equipment, protect injured people, carry civilians, even create defensive positions. Izuku quickly filled several pages. One evening, he tested another ability. He stood in the backyard. A small door appeared on his forearm. Inside the door was a tiny room containing several toy blocks. Izuku concentrated. The blocks moved. One by one, they assembled into a miniature tower. It works. He could control parts of the internal castle remotely. That meant he could potentially operate doors, storage areas, and defensive systems without entering them. Izuku immediately wrote another note. Possible remote control of internal structures. Then another idea occurred to him. What if someone attacks me? He opened a door on his chest. The interior room was completely protected by thick walls. Izuku imagined reinforcing them. The walls became thicker. Another layer appeared. Then another. Izuku stared at the result. So I can strengthen the castle too. Months passed. Izuku became increasingly comfortable with his unusual quirk. He could now create several entrances simultaneously. Small doors appeared on his arms, legs, shoulders, back, and chest. He could store objects inside. He could retrieve them. He could move between internal rooms. Most importantly, he discovered that his body could partially transform. When he concentrated, sections of his skin became covered in stone-like structures. Small towers emerged from his shoulders. Windows appeared across his arms. His body briefly resembled a miniature fortress. Izuku stared at himself in the mirror. This is definitely not a normal quirk. He smiled. But it could become a really good hero quirk. Years later, Izuku would understand just how powerful the Shiro Shiro no Mi could become. He would transform his body into a mobile fortress. He would carry entire rescue teams inside himself. He would shelter civilians from disasters. He would deploy heroes from hidden entrances. And when enemies became too dangerous, he would unleash the ultimate form of his quirk. Big Father. But for now, Izuku was only a 4-year-old boy standing inside the first room of his impossible castle. He looked at the unfinished walls. Then opened his notebook. I need a proper layout. His pencil began moving. The first blueprint of Izuku Midoriya's living fortress had just been created. Izuku was 8 years old when he finally realized that his castle was much larger than he had originally thought. The first few rooms had been simple. A storage room, a small bedroom, a training room, a medical room. But every time Izuku concentrated on his quirk, another corridor seemed to appear. One afternoon, he stood inside the main hall with his notebook in hand. Okay. He looked at the walls. Let's organize this properly. He had spent the previous night drawing a complete map of his internal castle. Now it was time to build it. The first room became the main entrance. Izuku created a large door connected directly to his chest. Behind it was a wide hall with several passages leading in different directions. He placed signs above each corridor. Storage, medical, training, command, living quarters. He stepped back. Much better. Then he noticed a problem. Wait. He opened the storage room. It was already filled with boxes. If I keep putting things here, I'll run out of space. Izuku immediately began planning another section. I need dedicated storage areas. He created 3 additional rooms. One for food, one for equipment, one for emergency supplies. Then he added another room. Rescue supplies. Inside it, he stored blankets, water, first aid equipment, flashlights, and other necessities. Izuku looked at the growing structure. If there's ever an emergency, people could stay here. His mother eventually discovered what he was doing. She stepped through the entrance on his chest and looked around. Izuku, you've built all of this? Yeah. He pointed toward the different corridors. This is the medical room, this is storage, and this is the command room. Inko smiled. You even made a command room. Izuku nodded seriously. If I'm going to become a hero, I need somewhere to plan. She walked inside. The command room was circular. A large table stood in the middle. Izuku had drawn maps across its surface. Small markers represented people, others represented buildings. He moved the markers around. If there is a disaster here, I can bring people inside. He moved several markers toward the center. Then I can take them somewhere safe. Inko looked at him. You've thought about this a lot. I don't want anyone getting hurt. Izuku's training became more serious as he grew older. He discovered that his internal castle responded to his imagination. If he wanted a larger room, he needed to concentrate. If he wanted stronger walls, he needed to focus on their structure. If he wanted additional doors, he had to understand where they connected. His notebook became thicker every month. One page contained measurements. Another showed the locations of doors. Another recorded how many people could safely remain inside. Izuku even created a section titled Castle Limitations. Under it, he wrote several points. Distance from body, number of active doors, energy consumption, internal damage, maximum occupants. He stared at the last one. I don't know the limit yet. That bothered him, so he decided to find out. Izuku entered his largest empty chamber. He created several doors. Then he brought furniture inside. 1 table, 5 chairs, 10 boxes, 20 boxes. The room continued expanding. Izuku's eyes widened. There doesn't seem to be a fixed limit. He continued. The room grew larger. He eventually stopped because he was tired. So the castle can expand. He wrote it down. Internal space appears to be expandable. Then he noticed something else. The larger the castle became, the more concentration he needed. That's probably the real limitation. Izuku sat down. Not space. He looked at his hands. Control. The next test involved people. Inko invited several relatives to help with the experiment. One by one, they entered Izuku's castle. Inside, everyone returned to normal size. The room became crowded. Izuku counted them carefully. 23. He looked around. Everyone was comfortable. We can fit more. Another group entered. 30, 40, 50. The room still had space. Izuku quickly stopped the experiment. That's enough. His mother looked surprised. Why stop? Because I don't know how much air we have. He immediately added another note. Ventilation required. That evening, he designed a ventilation system connecting the internal rooms to special openings on his body. He also created emergency exits. If something went wrong inside, people would never be trapped. 1 year later, Izuku's castle had become extremely complex. There were dozens of rooms, multiple corridors, several storage areas, training grounds, a medical ward, a command center, and a large central hall capable of holding dozens of people. Izuku stood in the middle of it all. This is getting huge, he smiled. Then he noticed something on his right arm. A small cannon had appeared. Izuku froze. What? The cannon moved slightly. He hadn't created it. His quirk had. Izuku slowly approached it. So the castle can create defensive structures too. He touched the cannon. The weapon immediately disappeared back into his arm. Izuku grabbed his notebook. His pencil moved rapidly. Possible internal artillery. Possible external deployment. Possible defensive transformation. His eyes widened. If I can make weapons. He looked toward the enormous central chamber. Then I could turn my entire body into a fortress. Izuku spent the next several years experimenting with that idea. Small cannons, reinforced walls, watchtowers, armored sections, hidden entrances, emergency exits. He even developed small platforms that could carry people from one part of his internal castle to another. His quirk became more complicated every year. But Izuku never stopped studying it. By the time he entered middle school, he no longer thought of his ability as merely a quirk that allowed him to store things. He had built an entire mobile fortress inside himself. And he had only begun to discover what it could do. One evening, Izuku stood before a massive reinforced door. He placed his hand against it. One day, the door opened. Behind it was an enormous empty chamber. This place will be able to protect hundreds of people. Izuku closed his notebook. He had no idea that his first real test would come sooner than expected. A villain attack, a trapped boy, and the first time Izuku would use his living castle to save someone. The afternoon in Musudafu was peaceful. Izuku walked home from school with his backpack hanging over one shoulder. His mind was already occupied with his latest experiments. He had spent the previous week testing the defensive structures inside his body. The results had been promising. His internal castle now had several reinforced rooms, emergency exits, storage areas, and even a small medical ward. But there was still one problem. He had never used his quirk during a real emergency. That changed when he heard shouting from the shopping district. Help! Izuku stopped. Another voice followed. Someone call a hero. He immediately ran toward the commotion. A crowd had gathered around a narrow street. Izuku pushed through them. His eyes widened. A massive sludge-like villain had wrapped itself around a young boy. The boy struggled desperately. Let me go. The villain laughed. Stop moving. Izuku recognized the boy immediately. Bakugo Katsuki. They had gone to the same middle school. Izuku had never been close to him, but he knew how stubborn and aggressive Bakugo could be. More importantly, Bakugo was in serious danger. Izuku looked around. Several pro-heroes were already trying to approach, but the villain's body covered Bakugo's face and made direct attacks too dangerous. Stay back, one hero shouted. We can't use fire or electricity while that kid is trapped. Izuku clenched his fists. His mind started working. Distance. Position. The villain's body. Bakugo's location. His own quirk. Then he remembered his castle. Izuku stepped forward. Midoriya. Someone from behind shouted. Don't go in there. Izuku ignored the warning. A small door appeared on his chest. The surrounding people stared. What is that? Izuku focused on Bakugo. He didn't need to attack the villain. He didn't need to overpower it. He only needed a way to move Bakugo. I can do this. The door opened. Inside was one of his internal corridors. Izuku extended his hand. The doorway suddenly expanded. The villain noticed him. Another brat. The sludge stretched toward Izuku. You're not taking him. Izuku waited until the villain's body shifted. Then he acted. Shambles. Bakugo disappeared. The sludge villain froze. What? A second later, Bakugo appeared inside Izuku's castle. He landed on the floor of the main hall. What the hell? Bakugo looked around. He was standing inside a massive room surrounded by stone walls. Izuku's voice came from a speaker-like opening in the wall. Bakugo, are you hurt? Midoriya. Bakugo looked around wildly. Where are you? You're inside my quirk. What? Bakugo punched the wall. Get me out. Not yet. Izuku's voice remained calm. You're safe here. Outside, the sludge villain was still trying to understand what had happened. Izuku stood directly in front of it. Let him go. The villain roared. Where did you send him? Izuku opened several small doors across his arms. The villain hesitated. Then small cannons emerged. The hero who had been trying to approach earlier stared at them. What kind of quirk is that? Izuku didn't answer. He focused on the villain. You can't reach him anymore. The sludge villain lunged. Izuku opened a door on his shoulder. The villain's fist disappeared through it. Inside the castle, the attack emerged through another doorway and struck an empty wall. Boom. Bakugo jumped. What was that? Izuku's voice answered from the corridor. He attacked me. Then let me out. I'm working on it. The villain continued attacking. Every time it approached, Izuku opened another door. The sludge entered one entrance and emerged from another. A punch disappeared into his chest and came out from his back. A tendril entered his arm and emerged from his leg. The villain became increasingly confused. Stop that. Izuku moved backward. He didn't need to fight physically. His entire body was a castle. Every entrance was a possible trap. Every corridor could redirect an attack. Every room could become a hiding place. The villain suddenly expanded its body and tried to cover Izuku completely. Izuku smiled. Bad idea. He opened a large door directly beneath himself. The villain fell through. What? Inside the castle, the villain's mass suddenly became much smaller. It appeared in an empty containment chamber. The doors closed. Izuku sealed them immediately. Got you. Bakugo watched everything from inside the castle. He couldn't believe what he was seeing. Midoriya actually captured that thing. He looked around again. The room was enormous. There were corridors leading in every direction. Lights illuminated the walls. Medical equipment sat in one corner. Boxes of supplies were stacked neatly along another wall. Bakugo frowned. How big is this place? Izuku finally appeared through a door. Pretty big. Bakugo stared at him. You have a castle inside your body. Izuku scratched his cheek. Apparently. That's insane. Izuku opened another door. Come on. Where? Outside. Bakugo stepped toward the doorway. As he crossed the boundary, his body returned to its normal size. He stumbled slightly. Izuku caught his arm. Careful. Bakugo pulled his arm away. I can stand. Izuku nodded. Okay. The pro-heroes had finally managed to restrain the sludge villain. The crowd erupted into cheers. Izuku looked at Bakugo. Are you okay? Bakugo remained silent for a moment. Then he looked toward Izuku. You saved me. Izuku blinked. Of course. Bakugo clenched his fists. His pride clearly didn't like admitting it. I'll repay you. Izuku smiled. You don't have to. I said I'll repay you. Izuku raised both hands. Okay. Okay. Later. All Might arrived. He had missed the main confrontation but quickly learned what had happened. His eyes focused on Izuku. Young Midoriya. Izuku looked up. Yes. That was an impressive use of your quirk. Izuku smiled. I just moved him somewhere safe. All Might looked toward the enormous crowd. You did more than that. He pointed toward the damaged street. You prevented the villain from using the hostage as a shield. Izuku looked at his hands. I just thought about what would keep him safest. All Might smiled. That's exactly what a hero should do. That evening, Izuku returned home. He entered his internal castle. The containment chamber holding the remaining sludge from the villain was already empty. The police had taken care of the captured villain after Izuku safely expelled it. Izuku walked through the main hall. He looked at the new door he had created during the incident. It was larger and stronger than the others. He opened his notebook. Under the section marked Real-World Applications, he wrote, First Emergency Rescue. Successful. Civilian Extraction. Successful. Enemy Containment. Successful. Then he added another line. The castle can protect people from the outside world. Izuku closed the notebook. His quirk had finally been tested outside training. And it had worked. But the incident had also revealed something else. If one person could be protected inside his castle, then perhaps 10 could. Or 50. Or 100. Izuku looked toward the enormous empty halls. He had already started building a fortress. Now he needed to find out how many people that fortress could protect. The U.A. entrance exam had finally arrived. Izuku stood outside the enormous testing facility with his backpack hanging from one shoulder. He looked at the other applicants. Everyone was nervous. Some were stretching. Others were discussing their quirks. Izuku opened his notebook. Inside were several pages dedicated to the exam. Priority 1. Rescue. Priority 2. Avoid unnecessary destruction. Priority 3. Maximize points while protecting other applicants. He closed the notebook. Let's do this. The gates opened. The applicants rushed forward. The moment Izuku entered the testing area, he activated his quirk. Small doors appeared across his arms. Room. His internal castle immediately connected to the surrounding area through several entrances. He moved through the streets while studying the robots. 1 point. 2 points. 3 points. Izuku didn't need to destroy everything himself. He opened a small door on his palm. A compact cannon emerged. Boom. A 1-point robot was destroyed. Izuku immediately opened another door. A second cannon fired. Boom. Another robot fell. He continued moving through the streets. Instead of fighting directly, he used his castle's internal weapons and stored equipment. His score climbed rapidly. Then he heard a scream. Help. Izuku turned. A girl had fallen beneath a pile of concrete. Izuku immediately ran toward her. Hold on. He opened a large door on his chest. The entrance connected directly to his medical ward. Come inside. The girl stared at him. What? Trust me. He reached down and carefully pulled her through the entrance. The moment she crossed the boundary, she appeared inside his castle. Izuku immediately sealed the entrance. Are you hurt? The girl shook her head. I don't think so. Good. Izuku smiled. Stay here until the exam is over. She looked around. Inside your body. It's safe. Then the ground shook. Boom. Izuku looked upward. His expression changed. A gigantic shadow covered the street. The 0-pointer had appeared. Applicants screamed and ran. The enormous robot stepped forward. Crash. Buildings shook beneath its weight. Izuku immediately opened his room. His castle doors appeared across his body. Everyone. He shouted. Get inside. Some applicants hesitated. What is that? My quirk. Izuku opened several large entrances. Come on. The first group rushed inside. Then another. And another. Within seconds, dozens of applicants had entered his castle. Izuku looked toward the giant robot. Keep moving. A section of the street collapsed. Crash. Several applicants fell. Izuku immediately opened a door beneath them. Got you. They disappeared. Inside the castle, they landed safely on a padded floor. Izuku continued evacuating people. Next. Another group. Inside. Another. He moved faster. Doors opened across his arms, shoulders, and back. People disappeared from the collapsing streets and reappeared safely inside. Izuku's internal halls rapidly filled. We have 30. Someone shouted. 40. Another voice followed. 50. Izuku's eyes widened. Keep them together. Then he heard another scream. Someone's trapped. Izuku turned. A girl was lying beneath a piece of rubble. The zero-pointer was approaching. Izuku recognized her. Ochaco Uraraka. She couldn't move. The robot raised one massive foot. Izuku didn't hesitate. Open. A gigantic door appeared on his chest. He expanded the entrance. Come on. Ochaco suddenly disappeared from beneath the rubble. She landed inside his castle. What? She looked around in confusion. Izuku's voice came from a nearby doorway. Are you hurt? Ochaco shook her head. No. Good. Izuku smiled. Stay with the others. Outside, the zero-pointer continued advancing. Izuku looked at the machine. He couldn't simply leave it standing. It was still a danger to everyone. He opened several defensive ports across his shoulders. Cannons emerged. Boom, boom, boom. The attack struck the robot's legs. Metal armor cracked, but the zero-pointer remained standing. Izuku frowned. It's too durable. He looked around. There were no civilians left nearby. Everyone was safe inside his castle. That meant he could use a stronger attack. Izuku opened a massive gate across his back. Inside was his largest artillery chamber. Several cannons rotated into position. Izuku grinned. All right. The barrels aligned. Fire. Boom. A concentrated barrage slammed into the zero-pointer. The machine staggered. Its enormous body tilted. Izuku fired again. Boom. The robot collapsed. Crash. The ground shook as it hit the street. Inside the castle, the applicants felt the impact. Ochaco grabbed the wall. What was that? Izuku's voice came from the speakers. The zero-pointer fell. Everyone stared at each other. He defeated it from inside his own body. One applicant whispered. Outside, Izuku closed his artillery ports. He looked at the destroyed robot. Then he checked his remaining stamina. Still fine. He opened his largest entrance. Everyone can come out now. One by one, the applicants exited his castle. As they crossed the doorway, they returned to their normal size. Ochaco stepped out last. She looked at Izuku. You saved everyone. Izuku scratched his cheek. There were a lot of people in danger. And you saved all of them. Izuku smiled. That's what heroes are supposed to do. Ochaco's cheeks became slightly pink. Right. The exam finally ended. Izuku stood among the other applicants as the testing area was cleared. He looked back at the ruined zero-pointer. His notebook was already open. He wrote down several observations. Mass evacuation. Successful. Maximum occupants during emergency. Approximately 50. Internal medical and storage facilities. Functional. External artillery. Effective against large targets. He paused. Then added another sentence. Castle can function as both shelter and combat platform. Izuku closed the notebook. He didn't know how many points he had earned. He didn't know whether he would be accepted. But he knew one thing. For the first time, his living fortress had protected an entire group of people. And somewhere inside the exam evaluators were already discussing the strange applicant whose body had become a castle. Izuku's first day at began quietly. He entered Class 1A and looked around. The room was filled with unfamiliar faces. Bakugo was already sitting near the window. Todoroki sat quietly several seats away. Ochaco smiled when she noticed Izuku. Midoriya. Izuku turned. Uraraka. She smiled. Thanks again for the entrance exam. Izuku nodded. You're welcome. Before they could continue, the classroom door opened. A tired-looking man wearing a capture weapon around his neck walked inside. Take your seats. Everyone became quiet. I'm Aizawa, your homeroom teacher. He placed a stack of clothes on the desk. We're doing a Quirk apprehension test. The class changed into their training clothes and went outside. Aizawa explained the tests. Running, grip strength, long jump, ball throwing. Each student would use their quirk to achieve the highest result possible. When it was Izuku's turn for the 50-meter dash, he stepped onto the starting line. Aizawa watched him carefully. Midoriya, yes, you can use your quirk. Izuku nodded. The starting signal sounded. Izuku opened a small door beneath his foot. The moment he stepped through, shambles. He appeared several meters ahead. Another door opened. Shambles. He appeared near the finish line. He crossed it almost instantly. The other students stared. Did he just teleport? Aizawa narrowed his eyes. Not exactly. Next came the grip strength test. Izuku held the device. He could have simply crushed it with physical strength. Instead, he opened a tiny entrance around his hand. The device partially entered his castle. Inside, he had a mechanical support system connected to the testing room. Izuku activated it. The numbers climbed rapidly. That's cheating, someone shouted. Aizawa looked at the device. No. He turned toward Izuku. His quirk is being used to produce the result. The number stopped. Izuku released the handle. I think that's enough. The long jump was even stranger. Izuku crouched. A small door appeared beneath him. He jumped through it. Inside the castle, he immediately moved through a corridor and exited from another door near the landing area. He landed safely. The class stared. Mina blinked. That's seriously weird. Jiro nodded. But kind of cool. Izuku scratched his cheek. Thanks. Then came the ball throw. Aizawa handed Izuku the ball. Throw it as far as you can. Izuku looked at the field. He didn't need to throw it normally. He opened a tiny door around the ball. The ball disappeared. A second later, it emerged from another door several hundred meters away. The measuring device displayed the distance. The class erupted. That's ridiculous. He didn't even throw it. Aizawa stared at the result. Midoriya. Izuku turned. Yes. Your quirk doesn't simply turn your body into a storage space. Aizawa looked at the enormous distance. You've created an entire combat platform. Izuku nodded. I've been developing it for years. Then Aizawa made an unexpected decision. Show me the inside. Izuku blinked. Inside, your castle. The class became interested immediately. Izuku opened a large door on his chest. All right. The entrance expanded. Inside was a massive hall. Rows of lights illuminated the stone walls. Corridors extended into different sections. Storage rooms were visible behind several doors. A medical ward occupied one side. Training equipment filled another. The students stared. There's actually a whole building in there. Kirishima stepped closer. How many people can fit? I've tested around 50 comfortably. 50. Mina's eyes widened. You can carry an entire class. Izuku nodded. If necessary. Bakugo approached the entrance. He looked inside. So that's where you put me during the sludge incident. Izuku nodded. Yes. Bakugo clicked his tongue. I still hate that. You were in danger. I know. Bakugo looked away. Doesn't mean I have to like it. Izuku smiled slightly. Aizawa stepped toward the entrance. Can I enter? Izuku nodded. Of course. Aizawa walked inside. The moment he crossed the doorway, he returned to normal size. He looked around carefully. How do you control all of this? The castle responds to my thoughts. Izuku walked toward one wall. A door appeared. Then another. Then another. I can change the layout. Aizawa's eyes narrowed. And if I erase your quirk? Izuku paused. Then the external structures disappear. Aizawa activated his quirk. His hair rose. The doors immediately vanished. The castle entrance disappeared. Izuku remained standing normally. Aizawa watched him. Your body itself doesn't change. Right. The castle is an extension of your quirk. Izuku nodded. Exactly. Aizawa released his quirk. The door returned. Interesting. The final test was the ball throw. Aizawa pointed toward the field. This time, no external artillery. Izuku nodded. He took the ball. He opened a small door around his hand. Inside his castle, a mechanical launcher appeared. Izuku connected the ball to it. Then he closed the door. Ready. Aizawa watched carefully. Izuku activated the launcher. Boom. The ball shot into the sky. The class looked upward. It disappeared into the distance. The measuring device registered the result. Aizawa looked at the number. Then at Izuku. You understand that your quirk has enormous potential. Izuku nodded. I know. But it also has a major weakness. Izuku looked curious. What is it? Izuku blinked. Aizawa continued. Your castle can protect dozens of people, but every function depends on your concentration. If you're exhausted or unconscious, your ability becomes unreliable. Izuku immediately understood. So I need to improve my stamina. And your combat skills. Izuku nodded. Understood. At the end of the test, Aizawa gathered the class. You're all dismissed. The students began walking away. Izuku remained behind for a moment. He looked at his hands. His quirk had passed the test. But Aizawa was right. A castle was only useful if its owner could keep it standing. Izuku opened his notebook. He added a new section. Weaknesses. Stamina. Concentration. Reaction speed. Physical combat. He stared at the list. Then added one final line. Solution. Train everything. Izuku closed the notebook. He walked back toward the classroom. Behind him, Aizawa watched silently. The strange student with a living castle had passed the first test. But had only just begun teaching him how to become a hero. The first battle training at began under clear skies. The students stood outside the training building while All Might explained the rules. Today, you'll be divided into hero and villain teams. Izuku listened carefully. His opponent was Bakugo. His teammate was Ochaco. Bakugo immediately grinned. Finally, Izuku glanced at him. You've been waiting for this. I've been waiting to smash you. Ochaco looked nervous. Midoriya, what's our plan? Izuku opened his notebook. We don't need to fight him. Bakugo's expression darkened. What did you say? Izuku pointed toward the building. Our objective is the bomb. If we reach it before time runs out, we win. Ochaco nodded. So we avoid Bakugo. Exactly. Bakugo cracked his knuckles. Try running. The training began. Izuku immediately opened a small door on his chest. Come inside. Ochaco stared at him. Inside your castle? Yes. Are you sure? It's the safest option. Ochaco hesitated before stepping through. The moment she crossed the doorway, she found herself inside Izuku's main hall. Wow, she looked around. It's even bigger than I imagined. Izuku's voice came from the walls. Stay here for now. Okay. Izuku closed the entrance. Outside, he stood alone. Bakugo appeared from around the corner. Where's Uraraka? Izuku smiled. Somewhere safe. Bakugo's eyes narrowed. You put her inside that castle. Yes. Then I'll break it open. Bakugo launched himself forward. Boom. Izuku stepped aside. Another explosion followed. Boom. Izuku opened a door on his arm. Bakugo's next attack disappeared inside it. Bakugo froze. What? The explosion emerged from another door several meters away. Boom. It struck an empty wall. Izuku continued walking. Your attacks can't reach her. Bakugo became more aggressive. He rushed forward. Izuku opened several small doors across his body. Bakugo's explosions entered one entrance after another. Boom. 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 None of them hit Izuku directly. Bakugo finally grabbed his shoulder. Got you. Izuku smiled. Not quite. A small door opened beneath Bakugo's foot. What? Bakugo disappeared. He reappeared inside one of Izuku's internal corridors. What the hell? The door closed. Bakugo slammed his fist against the wall. Midoriya. Izuku's voice echoed through the corridor. You can't reach me from there. Let me out. After the exercise, Bakugo shouted something unintelligible. Izuku ignored him. He continued toward the objective. The bomb was located on the highest floor. Izuku studied the building. Several security cameras watched the corridors. He opened a small door on his finger. A tiny scouting device rolled out. It moved through the hallway. Izuku watched its camera feed from inside his castle. 3 cameras. He opened another door. The device moved beneath them. 2 guards. He waited. The guards moved away. Clear. Izuku entered the building. He reached the stairwell. Then he heard footsteps. Midoriya. Ochaco's voice came from inside his castle. Are we winning? Not yet. I can help. Izuku thought for a moment. Okay. He opened a door on his shoulder. Ochaco appeared beside him. She immediately looked around. We're already inside. Yes. She smiled. That's incredibly convenient. They continued upward. Then Bakugo suddenly burst through a nearby wall. Crash. Ochaco jumped. Bakugo. Found you. He charged. Izuku opened a door. Inside. Ochaco stepped through. Bakugo's explosion hit the entrance. Boom. The door vanished. Bakugo grinned. Got you now. Izuku stood calmly. Not really. He opened another door. Bakugo's position suddenly changed. What? He appeared several meters away. Izuku switched him again. Then again. Bakugo stumbled through the hallway. Stop moving me. Izuku continued. You're wasting time. Bakugo finally realized what Izuku was doing. He wasn't trying to defeat him. He was delaying him. You're running out the clock. Izuku smiled. Exactly. Bakugo rushed forward again. Izuku opened a door beneath him. Bakugo disappeared. This time, he reappeared inside the castle. He landed in a large empty room. Damn it. Izuku immediately closed the entrance. Ochaco appeared beside Izuku. Should we go for the bomb? Yes. They reached the top floor. The mock bomb was directly ahead. Izuku opened his internal entrance. Ochaco stepped through. Then she touched the bomb. I'm here. Izuku smiled. Good. The training alarm sounded. The exercise was over. The doors opened. Bakugo emerged from Izuku's castle looking furious. You didn't beat me. Izuku nodded. No. Then don't act like you won. Izuku pointed toward the bomb. Our team reached the objective. Bakugo stared at it. Then he clicked his tongue. TCH. Ochaco walked toward them. Midoriya's strategy was really clever. Bakugo glared at her. You just hid inside him the entire time. Ochaco's face turned red. That's not what I meant. Izuku looked between them. The important thing is that the strategy worked. Later, All Might gathered the class. Young Midoriya's strategy was unusual, but highly effective. Izuku listened. He used his quirk not simply as a weapon, but as a transportation system, shelter, and infiltration method. All Might pointed toward him. That is the strength of a versatile quirk. Izuku nodded. Aizawa added, but don't become dependent on it. Izuku looked at him. Because someone could separate me from my castle. Because an enemy will eventually figure out how to counter it. Izuku opened his notebook. He immediately wrote that down. Never rely on one strategy. Then he added another. Develop infiltration techniques. Ochaco approached Izuku after class. Midoriya. Yes. Can I ask something? Of course. When I was inside your castle. She paused. There were so many rooms. Izuku nodded. I've been expanding it for years. Do you think you could fit the entire class inside? Izuku considered it. Probably. Ochaco's eyes widened. Seriously? Yes. He looked toward the training field. If there's a disaster, I could evacuate everyone. Ochaco smiled. Then your quirk is perfect for rescue. Izuku smiled back. That's what I'm hoping. He looked toward the distant training building. He had successfully turned his castle into a mobile infiltration platform. But the next challenge would be different. There would be no training rules, no teachers supervising, and no time to prepare. The U.S.J. incident was approaching. The next stage of Izuku's training focused on one problem. His castle could protect people. It could transport them. It could even store equipment. But its offensive capabilities were still limited. Izuku wanted to change that. He needed weapons that could be deployed without slowing him down. That was when Mei Hatsume entered his life. Show me again. Mei's eyes sparkled as she stared at the small cannon protruding from Izuku's arm. Izuku raised his arm. Like this. Yes. Mei moved closer. Your body is basically a walking support item factory. Not exactly. You have rooms, storage, entrances, defensive walls, and weapons inside you. She grinned. I love it. Izuku stepped backward. Please don't get too excited. Mei ignored him. How much space do you have? Quite a lot. How much power can you generate? I don't know. How many people can you carry? At least 50 comfortably. Mei's eyes widened. We're going to build something amazing. The first modification was simple. Mei designed a compact mechanical cannon that could be stored inside Izuku's castle. When inactive, it occupied only a small amount of space. When deployed, it expanded into a full-sized weapon. Izuku tested it on the training field. He opened a door on his shoulder. The cannon emerged. Ready. Mei stood behind the safety line. Fire. Boom. The projectile struck the target. The training robot was knocked backward. Izuku looked at the result. Power is good. Mei jumped excitedly. Of course it is. The second modification was defensive. Mei installed reinforced armor around several important sections of Izuku's external structure. The armor remained hidden beneath his skin until activated. When Izuku focused his quirk, metal plating appeared across his arms and shoulders. Click, click, click. The plates locked into place. Izuku moved his arm. Not bad. Mei smiled. You can deploy it instantly. Izuku tested the armor against a training robot. The machine swung its fist. Boom. The punch struck Izuku's armored arm. He barely moved. Defense is excellent. Mei nodded. And that's only the first version. The third modification was more ambitious. Izuku wanted hidden deployment points. He opened his castle's main command room. Mei stood in the center with several blueprints. We'll place artillery ports here. She pointed toward a diagram. Shoulder cannons. Another point. Arm-mounted weapons. Another. Rear defense. Izuku studied the plan. What about rescue equipment? Mei pointed toward another section. Medical supplies, ropes, shields, emergency tools, everything can be stored here. Izuku nodded. Good. He marked another area, and this should remain completely empty. Mei looked confused. Why? For civilians. He pointed toward the largest room. If there's a disaster, this is where they'll stay. Mei stared at him for a moment. Then she smiled. You're really serious about this hero thing? Izuku nodded. Of course. Weeks of modifications followed. Izuku's internal castle became a mobile command center. The main hall was expanded. The medical ward gained more beds. The storage rooms were reorganized. New armored corridors were installed. Small observation windows were connected to the outside. And hidden artillery ports were placed across his body. Izuku tested every system repeatedly. Door. An entrance opened. Armor. Metal plating covered his arm. Artillery. A cannon emerged. Storage. The cannon disappeared. Everything worked smoothly. One afternoon, Class 1A gathered around Izuku during training. Kirishima stared at the cannon on Izuku's shoulder. That's awesome. Mina pointed at another weapon. You have more of those. Izuku nodded. Several. Shiro laughed. How many weapons are actually inside you? Izuku paused. I haven't counted. Bakugo frowned. Of course you haven't. Todoroki examined the armor. Can it protect against strong attacks? Izuku nodded. To a certain degree. Bakugo smirked. Then let's test it. Izuku looked at him. Right now. Yeah. The two moved to the training field. Bakugo raised his hands. Don't complain. Izuku activated his armor. Click. The plating covered his arms and chest. Ready. Bakugo grinned. Here I come. Boom. An explosion struck Izuku's chest. He slid backward several meters. But he remained standing. The class reacted immediately. He blocked it. Bakugo narrowed his eyes. Again. Boom. Another explosion. Izuku opened a door on his arm. The blast entered the castle. A second door appeared behind Bakugo. The remaining force was redirected away from Izuku. Bakugo jumped aside. You're using the explosion itself as ammunition. Izuku nodded. That's one of the applications. Bakugo clicked his tongue. Annoying. The training ended with neither student seriously injured. Izuku's armor had several dents. He looked at them. The armor needs improvement. Mei immediately appeared beside him. Don't worry. I'll fix it. Izuku sighed. I knew you'd say that. That evening, Izuku stood alone inside his command room. The room was now filled with maps, communication equipment, and monitoring screens. He could observe multiple areas around his body simultaneously. He sat down. His castle no longer felt like an unusual quirk. It felt like an entire hero agency compressed into one body. Rescue, medical treatment, transportation, communication, defense, artillery. Everything was available. Izuku looked at the central map. If something happens, he imagined his classmates inside the castle, safe behind reinforced walls. Then he imagined himself walking into danger while everyone else remained protected. I can bring everyone with me. He smiled. And if the enemy attacks? Several cannons appeared around the walls. They'll have to get through the fortress first. The next morning, Izuku and Class 1A prepared for another lesson. Their destination was the U.S.J. None of them knew what awaited them there. Izuku packed additional medical supplies. He checked the artillery. He checked the emergency rooms. He checked the evacuation corridors. Everything was ready. When the class entered the U.S.J., Izuku looked around the enormous facility. This place is perfect for training. Aizawa nodded. Stay focused. Izuku adjusted his gloves. Yes, sir. Then the lights suddenly flickered. A strange mist appeared in the distance. Izuku's expression changed. That's not part of the exercise. Aizawa immediately moved forward. The mist spread across the facility. Dozens of figures emerged. Izuku's hand slowly rose. A small door opened on his chest. Inside, the entire fortress was already preparing for battle. The mist spread across the USJ. Izuku immediately stepped in front of his classmates. Everyone, stay close. Dozens of villains emerged from the fog. Aizawa's expression hardened. This isn't part of the exercise. The students finally realized what was happening. Villains. Izuku opened a door on his chest. Everyone inside. Hiroshima stared at him. What? Now? The first group rushed toward Izuku. He opened several doors across his body. Get inside. Students disappeared through the entrances one after another. Ochaco entered first. Then Tsuyu. Then Iida. The remaining students followed. Izuku continued opening doors. Keep moving. A villain attacked from behind. Izuku turned. A small cannon emerged from his shoulder. Boom. The villain was knocked backward. Another rushed toward him. Izuku opened a door beneath the villain's feet. The attacker dropped into an empty chamber inside the castle. Secured. The entrance closed. Aizawa watched carefully. Midoriya. Don't put everyone inside yourself. Izuku looked toward him. It's safer. You'll become a target. Izuku nodded. Then they'll target me instead. Aizawa's eyes narrowed. You understand what you're saying? Yes. Izuku opened another entrance. More students rushed inside. The main hall became crowded. How many? Iida began counting. 20. Another group entered. 25. Izuku continued. Keep everyone in the central hall. Then the mist suddenly expanded. Izuku saw several students disappear. Where did they go? Aizawa turned. The villains are separating us. The remaining students were scattered across different sections of the USJ. Izuku immediately understood the problem. His classmates were outside his range. He couldn't protect them all from one location. I need to find them. He expanded his castle entrances. Several doors appeared across his body. Izuku began moving through the facility. He reached the flood zone first. Tsuyu and Mineta were surrounded by villains. Midoriya. Tsuyu jumped toward him. Izuku opened a large door. Inside, Tsuyu and Mineta crossed the entrance. Several villains followed. Izuku closed the door. The villains suddenly found themselves trapped inside a reinforced chamber. Mineta stared. You just captured them. Yes. Tsuyu looked around. This place is safe. Stay here. Izuku moved again. The next zone was filled with fire. A group of villains surrounded several students. Izuku opened his chest entrance. Come on. The students rushed toward him. One villain fired an attack. Izuku stepped in front. The projectile struck his armor. Crack. The armor held. Izuku opened another door. The projectile disappeared inside. A moment later, it emerged behind the villain. Boom. The attacker fell. Everyone inside. The students entered. Izuku sealed the door. Another zone. Then another. Izuku moved through the facility, collecting his classmates one group at a time. Every time he found someone, he opened another entrance. Every time a villain attacked, his castle swallowed the attack or trapped the attacker. Soon, most of Class 1A had been gathered inside. Iida looked at the growing crowd. We are nearly all accounted for. Izuku nodded. How many are missing? Iida checked. Midoriya, Bakugo and Todoroki are still outside. Izuku looked toward the central hall. Then I'll find them. He opened the largest entrance yet. Room expansion. The castle's internal corridors shifted. New passages appeared. The walls stretched. The central hall became larger. Students watched in amazement. He's expanding it while we're inside. Momo examined the walls. He's increasing the internal space. Izuku nodded. There's still room. Then a loud impact shook the building. Boom. Everyone froze. Aizawa looked toward the source. That's probably the Nomu. Izuku's expression became serious. Then I need to get there. Aizawa grabbed his shoulder. Don't. Izuku looked at him. You have to stay here and protect the students. Aizawa released him. You're right. Izuku opened a door. I'll bring back anyone who's still outside. He found Bakugo first. Bakugo was fighting several villains. Midoriya. Izuku opened a door behind him. Inside, Bakugo grinned. Finally, he jumped through. The entrance closed behind him. Bakugo landed in the central hall. How many people are in here? Almost everyone. Bakugo looked around. This place is huge. Todoroki was next. He stood in the center of the plaza surrounded by frozen villains. Izuku opened a door. Todoroki. Todoroki looked toward him. Midoriya. Get inside. Todoroki stepped through. The entrance closed. Izuku turned toward the final section. Something enormous stood there. Nomu. The creature raised its head. Izuku stared. So you're the one. Nomu charged. Boom. Its fist struck Izuku's armored chest. Izuku was thrown backward. He crashed into the ground. Crash. He immediately stood. His armor was damaged. Strong. Nomu attacked again. Izuku opened a door. The fist disappeared. Another door appeared behind Nomu. The attack emerged. Boom. Nomu barely moved. Izuku frowned. Shock absorption. Nomu charged again. Izuku opened multiple doors. The creature moved through one entrance after another. Every time it appeared, Izuku changed its position. Left, right, above, behind. Nomu eventually stopped. Izuku smiled. You don't need to be stronger than me. He opened a massive entrance. You just need to stay away from everyone else. Nomu was suddenly swallowed into his castle. The entrance closed. Inside the castle, Nomu stood in an enormous empty chamber. The walls were reinforced. Izuku appeared on a platform above it. You're staying here. Nomu roared. Roar. It punched the wall. Boom. The wall shook, but held. Izuku immediately reinforced it. Another layer appeared. Then another. This room was designed for containment. Nomu attacked again. Boom. The castle trembled. Izuku clenched his fist. Hold. The walls remained intact. Outside, Shigaraki watched the scene. Where did Nomu go? Kurogiri's mist moved around him. I cannot detect it. Shigaraki scratched his neck. That boy. He stared toward Izuku. He swallowed Nomu. Izuku stood alone in the plaza. His armor was damaged. His breathing was heavy. But his classmates were safe. The students inside his castle were completely protected from the villains outside. Izuku looked toward Shigaraki. You're not getting them. Shigaraki's fingers twitched. Then I'll destroy your castle. Izuku opened several artillery ports. Cannons emerged across his shoulders. Boom. 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 The villains scattered. Shigaraki stepped backward. For the first time since arriving at the USJ, he understood the problem. The students weren't simply hiding. They had turned Izuku Midoriya into their fortress. And as long as that fortress remained standing, reaching them would be extremely difficult. The USJ shook again. Boom. Izuku stood in the center of the plaza while smoke covered the surrounding area. Inside his castle, Class 1A remained safely gathered in the central hall. But Nomu was still trapped inside the containment chamber. Izuku could feel every impact through the walls. Boom. The chamber shook. It's getting stronger. Momo looked at him. Can you keep it contained? Izuku nodded. For now. Another impact followed. Boom. The floor trembled. Izuku clenched his fists. I need something stronger. Inside the containment chamber, Nomu slammed both fists into the walls. Boom. Crack. Small fractures appeared. Izuku immediately reinforced the damaged section. Thick walls expanded over the cracks. Nomu roared. Roar. It charged again. Boom. The chamber shook harder. Izuku watched the structural readings from his command room. The current walls won't last forever. Iida stepped forward. Then what will you do? Izuku looked toward the main hall. Upgrade. Izuku closed his eyes. His body began changing. The walls of his internal castle shifted. Armor spread across his exterior. Towers emerged from his shoulders. Thick metal plating covered his arms and legs. His chest expanded. Large defensive structures formed across his back. The students watched through the castle's observation windows. What is happening? Todoroki stared at the massive structure. Izuku's body continued transforming. His entire form grew. Larger. Heavier. Stronger. The ground beneath him cracked. Crack. Izuku's head emerged above the surrounding buildings. His body had transformed into a gigantic fortress. Massive walls surrounded his structure. Tower-like sections rose from his shoulders. Large cannons were positioned across his sides. A huge central gate formed across his chest. Izuku had activated his ultimate defensive form. Big Father. Nomu burst through the containment chamber. Boom. Izuku felt the impact. It's out. The massive creature charged toward him. Boom. Its fist struck the armored wall of Big Father. The entire fortress shook, but it didn't move. Nomu attacked again. Boom. Another punch. The armor held. Izuku looked down at the creature. That won't work. Nomu roared. Roar. It struck again. Boom. Nothing. The students inside the castle stared through the observation windows. Kirishima's eyes widened. He blocked that with his body. Bakugo smirked. Of course he did. Nomu continued attacking. Punch after punch struck the fortress. Boom. 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 The walls remained intact. Izuku monitored the impact from inside the command room. Outer armor holding. He checked another screen. Internal structure stable. Then he noticed something. It's adapting. Nomu's attacks were becoming stronger. Izuku immediately ordered the internal systems to reinforce the impact zones. Thick metal plates shifted across his exterior. The next punch struck. Boom. The impact was absorbed. Izuku barely felt it. Better. Nomu suddenly jumped. Izuku looked upward. The creature came down with both fists. Boom. The impact created a shockwave across the plaza. Dust filled the air. The students inside the fortress grabbed the walls. When the dust cleared, Big Father was still standing. Izuku's massive fortress had barely moved. He opened several artillery ports. My turn. The cannons rotated toward Nomu. Inside the fortress, support systems activated. Momo stared at the control room. How many cannons does he have? Izuku checked the displays. Enough. Boom. The first cannon fired. The blast struck Nomu and pushed it backward. Boom. Another. Boom. Another. Nomu attempted to charge through the barrage. Izuku adjusted the cannons. Concentrate fire. All the artillery focused on the same target. Boom. The combined barrage sent Nomu crashing through several concrete structures. Crash. Nomu immediately stood. Izuku frowned. It's still standing. Aizawa watched from inside. Then don't underestimate it. Izuku nodded. I won't. Nomu suddenly disappeared. Izuku's sensors detected movement. Above. Nomu descended. Izuku opened a massive gate on his chest. Come in. Nomu entered the opening. The moment it crossed the boundary, its enormous body shrank. Nomu suddenly found itself inside the central containment chamber again. The doors slammed shut. Izuku smiled. You're back where you started. Nomu attacked the walls. Boom. The chamber shook. Izuku reinforced it immediately. This time, I'm not giving you enough room to build momentum. Shigaraki watched from outside. His expression became increasingly irritated. Why isn't Nomu breaking through? Kurogiri answered calmly. Midoriya's defensive ability is preventing direct access. Shigaraki scratched his neck. Then destroy him. Kurogiri looked toward the enormous fortress. That may prove difficult. Shigaraki stared at Big Father. Then we'll see how long he can keep that thing standing. Inside Big Father, Izuku monitored every system. His classmates were safe. The medical ward was ready. The containment chamber was reinforced. The artillery was operational. The external armor remained intact. But there was one problem. His stamina. Izuku looked at the readings. Big Father consumes a lot more energy than normal. Momo approached him. Can you maintain it? Yes. He paused. But not forever. Aizawa nodded. Then end the fight quickly. Izuku looked toward the containment chamber. Nomu slammed into the wall again. Boom. The entire fortress shook. Izuku stood. All right. He opened several large doors. Everyone stay inside. Bakugo grinned. What are you doing? Izuku looked toward the artillery controls. Ending this. The fortress's cannons emerged. Dozens of barrels rotated into position. Nomu looked upward. Izuku activated every weapon simultaneously. Fire. Boom. The entire USJ shook. The combined artillery barrage struck Nomu from every direction. Boom. 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 The containment chamber filled with smoke. The students stared at the monitors. When the smoke cleared, Nomu was still standing. Injured. But standing. Izuku narrowed his eyes. So that's your limit. Nomu raised its head. Izuku opened the largest cannon yet. The barrel emerged from the center of Big Father's chest. It was far larger than the others. Izuku took a breath. One shot. The cannon charged. A deep mechanical hum filled the fortress. Nomu charged toward the wall. Izuku waited. Fire. Boom. The massive blast struck Nomu directly. The creature was launched through the chamber. Crash. It slammed into the reinforced wall. For several seconds, nothing moved. Izuku watched the monitor. Then Nomu collapsed. The students erupted in cheers. Izuku released a breath. Target neutralized. Outside, Shigaraki stared at the fallen Nomu. His hands trembled. That thing. He looked at the gigantic fortress. He turned himself into a castle. Kurogiri opened a portal. We should retreat. Shigaraki glared at Izuku. Not yet. Then a powerful presence entered the USJ. Izuku sensed it immediately. His expression changed. Someone else just arrived. The students became silent. Aizawa looked toward the entrance. All Might. Izuku looked at the approaching hero. Then toward Shigaraki. The battle wasn't over yet. All Might's arrival changed the atmosphere of the USJ instantly. Izuku stood in his massive fortress form, surrounded by smoke and broken concrete. Nomu was down. The remaining villains had stopped moving. Shigaraki stared at the towering fortress. Another problem. Kurogiri appeared beside him. The number 1 hero has arrived. All Might stepped forward. You villains chose the wrong place to attack. Izuku looked toward him. All Might. All Might glanced at Big Father. His eyes widened. Young Midoriya. Yes. What happened to you? Izuku looked down at his enormous armored body. This is my quirk. All Might's expression became even more surprised. You turned yourself into a fortress. Izuku nodded. The students are inside. They're safe. All Might smiled. Excellent work. Shigaraki suddenly raised his hand. Nomu. The creature slowly moved. Izuku's eyes widened. It's still conscious. Nomu pushed itself up. Boom. The ground cracked beneath its hand. All Might stepped forward. Then I'll put it down. He charged. Boom. His fist struck Nomu. The impact sent the creature flying. Crash. Nomu immediately recovered. It rushed back. All Might punched again. Boom. The two exchanged blows at incredible speed. Izuku watched carefully. Shock absorption. He remembered the earlier battle. That's why All Might's attacks aren't working. Inside Big Father, the students watched the fight through the observation windows. Bakugo clenched his fists. Come on, All Might. Todoroki remained focused. Nomu is matching him. Izuku nodded. Then I'll help. Izuku opened several artillery ports. Everyone, stay inside. The cannons emerged from the fortress walls. All Might noticed them. Young Midoriya. Izuku aimed. I'll force Nomu away from you. Boom. The first cannon fired. The blast struck the ground beside Nomu. The creature was thrown sideways. All Might immediately followed. Smash. Boom. His fist slammed into Nomu. The creature crashed into the ground. Izuku fired again. Boom. Another cannon struck. Then another. Boom. Boom. Nomu was pushed farther away from the students. Izuku continued firing. Keep it away from the fortress. Shigaraki watched the barrage. Stop him. The villains rushed toward Big Father. Izuku noticed them immediately. Defensive mode. Small cannons emerged across the lower walls. Boom. The first villain was knocked away. Another approached from the side. Izuku opened a door beneath him. The villain dropped into an empty holding room. Secured. A third villain attacked. Izuku rotated one of the fortress walls. The attack struck the armor and bounced away. Crack. The wall remained intact. Izuku continued protecting the entrance. Inside, Momo helped organize the students. Everyone stay away from the outer walls. Iida nodded. Understood. Outside, All Might and Nomu continued fighting. Boom, boom, boom. The shockwaves shook the entire USJ. Izuku watched the battle. All Might was gradually increasing his power. He's pushing himself. Aizawa looked toward him. Can you support him? Izuku nodded. Yes. He opened the largest cannon in his arsenal. The barrel emerged from Big Father's chest. This should help. Aizawa's eyes widened. Midoriya, don't accidentally hit All Might. I won't. Izuku adjusted the cannon's angle. He waited. Nomu raised its arm. All Might moved away. Now, Izuku fired. Boom. The blast struck Nomu directly. The creature was launched backward. All Might followed instantly. United States of Smash. Boom. The impact was enormous. Nomu disappeared into the smoke. The students inside the fortress went silent. Izuku watched the monitor. Target. Nothing. Then the screen showed movement. Nomu had been defeated. Shigaraki stared at the battlefield. His hands trembled. Nomu. Kurogiri immediately opened a portal. We must leave. Shigaraki looked toward Big Father. That kid. Izuku's massive eyes focused on him. Shigaraki suddenly found himself surrounded by cannons. If you attack again, I'll stop you. Shigaraki raised his hand. Decay. Izuku reacted immediately. Don't. A section of the ground beneath Shigaraki disappeared. He jumped backward. Kurogiri opened a portal. Now, Shigaraki was dragged through. The remaining villains followed. The portal closed. Silence returned. Izuku slowly deactivated Big Father. The massive fortress shrank. Armor disappeared. Towers folded into his body. The cannons vanished. Within seconds, Izuku returned to normal. He stumbled. Ochaco caught his arm. Midoriya, I'm okay. He took a breath. Just exhausted. Aizawa approached. You protected everyone, contained Nomu, and supported All Might. Izuku smiled. The important thing is that everyone is safe. All Might walked toward them. Young Midoriya. Izuku looked up. All Might gave him a thumbs up. That fortress of yours was incredible. Izuku smiled. Thank you. The students began leaving the USJ. Izuku looked back at the destroyed training facility. His castle had protected them. His artillery had supported All Might. His containment rooms had neutralized several villains. For the first time, he understood how powerful a mobile fortress could become when combined with teamwork. But he also understood its biggest weakness. His stamina. He opened his notebook. Under the previous entry, he wrote, Big Father. Successful. Artillery support. Successful. Mass protection. Successful. Then he added, major weakness. Stamina consumption. Izuku closed the notebook. The USJ incident was over. But news of the student who had transformed himself into a gigantic fortress would soon spread throughout the hero world. And many professional heroes would begin asking the same question. Just how powerful could Izuku Midoriya's castle become? The U.A. Sports Festival had arrived. The stadium was packed with spectators. Thousands of people filled the stands, while cameras focused on the students of Class 1A. Izuku stood among his classmates in his hero costume. His expression was calm. This wasn't a normal training exercise. There were no rescue zones. No hidden enemies. No buildings to protect. This time, everyone was watching him. Midnight stepped onto the field. The first event is the obstacle race. The gates opened. Begin. The students rushed forward. Izuku immediately activated his quirk. Small castle gates appeared around his legs. His body became heavier as parts of his internal structure shifted. He didn't need to run at full speed. He simply opened a door beneath himself. The next moment, he appeared several meters ahead. Then another door. And another. Each movement carried him across the track. He's teleporting. One commentator shouted. Izuku continued forward. Then a massive robot appeared. The same type of obstacle used during his entrance examination. Izuku looked at it. Not again. The robot swung its arm. Izuku opened a door on his shoulder. The mechanical fist disappeared inside his castle. He redirected it toward the ground behind the robot. Boom. The robot lost its balance. Izuku passed without slowing down. Then came the ice. Todoroki stood ahead of him. A massive wave of ice spread across the track. Crack. The ground disappeared beneath a frozen mountain. The other students struggled to move. Izuku simply opened a door. A section of the ice entered his castle. Then he opened another entrance several meters away. The ice emerged there. The path cleared. Todoroki looked at him. You can store environmental objects too. Izuku nodded. Yes. Todoroki created another wall. Izuku opened another door. The wall disappeared. He continued forward. Todoroki watched him pass. Annoying. Bakugo suddenly appeared behind Izuku. Don't think you're getting away. Boom. An explosion launched Bakugo forward. Izuku turned. Bakugo's palm was already glowing. Boom. The explosion struck. Izuku's body became covered by thick castle armor. The blast pushed him backward. He stopped himself. Nice attack. Bakugo grinned. I'm not finished. Another explosion. Izuku opened a small door in front of his chest. The blast disappeared inside. Bakugo's eyes widened. What? Izuku opened another door behind Bakugo. The stored explosion burst out. Boom. Bakugo was thrown forward. You damn. Izuku continued running. See you at the finish. The final obstacle was a massive ravine. Students began searching for ways across. Izuku opened a large door on his back. A bridge extended from his internal storage. He stepped onto it. Several students stared. He carries a bridge inside himself. Izuku reached the other side. Then he removed the bridge and stored it again. The crowd erupted. His name appeared near the top of the scoreboard. Izuku crossed the finish line. First place. The stadium roared with excitement. The next event was the cavalry battle. Izuku stood with his assigned teammates. Ochaco, Iida, and Todoroki joined him. Iida adjusted his glasses. Midoriya, what is our strategy? Izuku opened his notebook. We defend the headband and control the battlefield. Ochaco nodded. And if someone attacks? Izuku smiled. They won't be able to reach us. The match began. Every team charged toward the others. Izuku immediately opened several small doors across his body. His teammates stepped inside. Wait. Ochaco blinked. We're going inside. Yes. She stepped through. Iida followed. Todoroki entered last. Izuku remained outside. His body became covered in reinforced armor. He now looked like a small moving fortress. Several teams rushed toward him. Get his headband. The first attacker jumped. Izuku opened a door. The attacker disappeared. He reappeared several meters away. Another team approached from the side. Izuku opened another door. One of their horses suddenly vanished into his castle. The remaining riders lost their balance. Izuku moved away. Too easy. Bakugo's team suddenly appeared. Midoriya. Bakugo launched himself forward. Boom. Izuku raised an armored arm. The explosion struck. The armor absorbed the impact. Izuku barely moved. Bakugo stared. What the hell is that armor? Castle reinforcement. Izuku opened a door beneath Bakugo. Bakugo disappeared. He reappeared above the field. What? He fell toward the ground. Boom. Bakugo landed safely but angrily. Midoriya. Izuku continued moving. The match became chaotic. Teams surrounded Izuku from every direction. But every attack met the same problem. They couldn't reach him. Whenever someone grabbed his body, a door opened. Whenever someone attacked, the castle swallowed the attack. Whenever a teammate was about to fall, Izuku opened an entrance and pulled them inside. His castle became a moving fortress. One team attempted to attack from above. Izuku opened a door on his back. A small cannon emerged. Boom. The team was forced away. Another group approached from the front. Izuku opened several doors. 3 armored training drones emerged from his internal storage. They fired harmless training rounds. Hop, hop, hop. The opposing team scattered. Ochaco watched through an observation window inside the castle. Midoriya is doing all of this alone. Iida nodded. He has effectively transformed the cavalry battle into a defensive siege. Todoroki looked at the walls. And were completely protected. The final seconds approached. 10. The crowd began counting. 9. Izuku checked the scoreboard. His team was still holding the required points. 8. Bakugo charged again. 7. Boom. Izuku's armor absorbed another explosion. 6. Izuku opened a door. Bakugo disappeared. 5. Bakugo reappeared far away. 4. Izuku moved toward the finish area. 3. Another team attempted to intercept him. Izuku opened a massive door. The entire team disappeared. 2. He closed the entrance. 1. The horn sounded. The cavalry battle ended. Izuku's team had qualified. The students exited Izuku's castle. Ochaco stretched her arms. That was amazing. Iida nodded. Your internal facilities provided excellent protection. Todoroki looked at Izuku. You didn't even need to fight directly. Izuku closed the last entrance. That was the point. Bakugo walked past them. Don't get too comfortable. Izuku looked at him. Bakugo's eyes were filled with determination. The tournament is next. Izuku nodded. I know. The tournament arena was prepared. Students entered the stadium one by one. Izuku stood at the entrance. His opponents would no longer be teams. They would come after him individually. There would be nowhere to hide. The announcer raised his microphone. Get ready for the final event. The crowd erupted. Izuku looked toward the arena. His fingers tightened. He had spent years turning his body into a fortress. Now he would discover how well that fortress could fight one-on-one. The tournament was about to begin. The stadium erupted as the tournament bracket appeared on the giant screen. Izuku stood at the center of the arena, watching the names appear one after another. His first opponent was Shoto Todoroki. Todoroki walked into the arena from the opposite side. The crowd immediately became louder. Midoriya, Todoroki. The two stopped several meters apart. Midnight raised her hand. Begin. Todoroki moved first. His right foot slammed against the ground. Crack. A massive wave of ice surged toward Izuku. Izuku didn't move. The ice rapidly covered the arena. The crowd gasped. Then several small doors appeared across Izuku's body. Thick armored walls emerged from them. The ice slammed into the barriers. Crack. The entire arena floor became frozen. Izuku remained standing. Todoroki narrowed his eyes. You blocked it. Izuku looked at the ice surrounding him. Yes. Then I'll use more. Another wave erupted. Crack. This time, the ice rose higher than Izuku himself. Izuku opened a large door across his chest. The ice entered the castle. A portion of the attack disappeared inside his body. Todoroki's eyes widened. You can absorb my ice. I can store it. Izuku closed the entrance. Inside his castle, the frozen material was contained in a reinforced storage chamber. Izuku then opened a small door beneath his feet. He disappeared. Todoroki immediately looked around. Where? Izuku reappeared behind him. Here. Todoroki turned. Izuku pushed him. Todoroki slid several meters across the frozen ground. He stopped before reaching the boundary. Not enough. Todoroki raised his left hand. Flames erupted. Roar. The sudden heat melted the ice around him. Izuku raised his arms. Armor covered his body. The flames struck him. He was pushed backward. His boots carved lines into the ground. But he remained standing. The crowd went wild. Midoriya is still standing. Todoroki increased the flames. Izuku opened several doors across his arms. The fire entered them. Then he redirected it toward an empty section of the arena. The flames exploded harmlessly away from the spectators. Todoroki stared. You can redirect my attacks. Only within the range of my castle. Izuku pointed toward the arena. And that's enough. Todoroki created another enormous wave of ice. This time, Izuku didn't wait. Big Father. His body expanded. Armored walls emerged around him. Towers rose from his shoulders. His entire body transformed into a smaller version of the fortress he had used at the USJ. The audience exploded with excitement. He's transforming again. Todoroki's ice crashed against the fortress. Crack. The outer walls froze. Izuku remained inside. Armor temperature is dropping. He opened several internal vents. Warm air escaped through the fortress. The ice began melting. Todoroki stared. Even that doesn't stop you. Izuku opened the main gate. Your ice is strong. He stepped forward. But this isn't just armor. He pointed toward the ground. It's my entire castle. Todoroki changed tactics. He rushed forward. Izuku opened a door. Todoroki swung his fist. The attack disappeared. Izuku redirected him several meters away. Todoroki landed. He immediately created ice beneath Izuku's feet. Crack. Izuku's legs were trapped. Todoroki charged. Izuku smiled. Good move. A small door appeared beside his knee. His trapped leg disappeared. A second door opened beside his waist. His leg reappeared outside the ice. Izuku stepped free. Todoroki's fist came toward him. Izuku opened a door. Todoroki's fist passed through empty space. Izuku reappeared behind him. He tapped Todoroki's shoulder. You're out of position. Todoroki turned. Izuku opened a door beneath him. Todoroki vanished. He reappeared at the edge of the arena. His foot landed outside the boundary. The referee immediately raised his hand. Todoroki is out. The stadium erupted. Todoroki stood silently for several seconds. He looked down at his foot. Then at Izuku. You didn't overpower me. Izuku returned to his normal form. I didn't need to. Todoroki nodded slowly. Your quirk makes direct combat difficult. Izuku smiled. That's what I've been training for. Todoroki walked away. Izuku returned to the waiting area. Ochaco immediately approached him. That was incredible. Izuku smiled. Thanks. Momo adjusted her glasses. Your defensive structure was especially impressive. Iida nodded. You controlled the entire battlefield without causing unnecessary damage. Izuku looked toward the arena. That's the goal. Then a loud explosion came from the other side. Boom. Everyone turned. Bakugo had finished his match. He walked toward Izuku. Don't think that little castle trick will save you. Izuku looked at him. Are we fighting next? Bakugo grinned. If the bracket says so. The tournament continued. One opponent after another fell. Izuku didn't rely on brute force. He used doors, walls, storage chambers, hidden passages, and controlled deployment. Whenever someone tried to rush him, he redirected them. Whenever someone attacked, he blocked or stored the attack. Whenever the fight approached the edge, Izuku changed his position. The crowd slowly began calling him something. The moving fortress. Another commentator shouted, You can't pin this kid down. Izuku heard the nickname. He simply smiled. Eventually, only 4 students remained. Izuku, Bakugo, Todoroki, and another finalist. The bracket was displayed above the stadium. Izuku looked at the remaining matches. Bakugo looked at him from across the arena. We're getting closer. Izuku nodded. Yeah. Bakugo cracked his knuckles. When we fight, I'm blowing that castle apart. Izuku closed his notebook. You can try. Bakugo grinned. That's what I wanted to hear. The crowd erupted again. The tournament had reached its final stages. And the next battle would push Izuku's castle quirk harder than anything before it. The internship period had begun. After the U.A. Sports Festival, Izuku received several offers from professional heroes. Among them were agencies interested in his unusual combination of combat, rescue, and defensive abilities. He eventually chose an agency in Hosu City. The city was larger than Musudafu, filled with tall buildings and crowded streets. It was also known for having an increasing number of villain incidents. Izuku walked through the streets wearing his hero costume. A small door appeared on his wrist. Inside were medical supplies, restraints, communication equipment, and several emergency tools. He checked everything before continuing. Everything's ready. His agency supervisor nodded. You're unusually prepared for a student. Izuku smiled. My quirk works better when I prepare beforehand. The patrol was quiet at first. Izuku helped a few civilians with minor problems and stopped a purse snatcher before the police arrived. Then his communicator suddenly activated. Midoriya, there's been an incident several blocks away. Izuku immediately turned. Where? The location appeared on his screen. Near the Eastern Commercial District. Izuku started running. A few seconds later, he heard a scream. Then metal struck concrete. Crash. Izuku reached the intersection. His expression immediately changed. Someone was fighting in the alley. Tenya Iida, and a masked man carrying swords. Izuku recognized the figure from news reports. The hero killer. Stain. Iida was already injured. Blood covered part of his costume. Stain stood over him with a sword raised. Your ideals are false. Iida tried to move. His body refused. Stain stepped forward. Those who call themselves heroes without true conviction deserve to fall. He raised the blade. Izuku's eyes narrowed. Put the sword down. Stain turned. Another hero. Izuku opened his palm. A small castle gate appeared. Yes. Stain smiled. Then come. He lunged toward Iida. Izuku reacted instantly. Open. A door appeared beneath Iida. Iida disappeared. Stain's sword cut through empty air. What? Iida suddenly appeared beside Izuku. He fell to one knee. Izuku caught him. You're safe. Iida stared at him. Midoriya. Yes. Izuku opened a larger door across his chest. Inside. Iida hesitated. What about you? I'll handle him. Iida entered the castle. The door closed. Stain slowly lowered his sword. You took him. Izuku nodded. He's injured. Return him. No. Stain's eyes narrowed. Then I'll take you down first. He charged. Izuku didn't retreat. His body became covered with reinforced armor. Clang. Stain's sword struck his chest. The blade stopped against the hardened surface. Stain's eyes widened. Izuku looked down at the sword. That won't work. Stain immediately pulled back. Izuku opened a small door on his arm. My turn. Stain moved sideways. Izuku didn't attack. Instead, he opened a door beneath the street. Stain jumped away. Another door appeared beside him. Stain swung his sword. Izuku disappeared. The blade struck nothing. Annoying quirk. Izuku reappeared several meters away. It's not just teleportation. Several doors opened around him. It's my castle. Stain rushed forward again. Izuku opened a door. Stain disappeared. He emerged above the street. Before he could react, another door opened beneath him. He dropped through it. Then another. And another. Stain found himself moving through a series of connected castle entrances. Izuku was controlling every exit. Stop. Stain landed on a rooftop. Izuku appeared in front of him. You're not going anywhere. Stain swung his sword. Izuku raised his armored arm. Clang. The blade bounced away. Stain attempted to draw another weapon. Izuku opened a door beside his waist. The knife disappeared. Stain froze. What did you do? Stored it. Izuku opened another entrance. The sword vanished from Stain's hand. Then the second knife. Then the remaining weapons. Stain suddenly found himself unarmed. His expression hardened. You dare disarm me? Izuku stepped closer. Yes. Stain tried to escape. Izuku opened a door beneath him. Stain fell directly into a large chamber inside Izuku's castle. The walls were reinforced steel. A heavy door closed behind him. Stain slammed his fist against it. Boom. Nothing happened. Izuku appeared on the other side of a reinforced window. This is a temporary holding cell. Stain stared at him. You intend to imprison me inside yourself. Until the police arrive. Stain stepped toward the wall. You cannot hold me. Izuku shook his head. I've held stronger opponents. Stain attacked the wall. Boom. The chamber shook. The walls remained intact. Izuku reinforced them. Thick metal plating covered the damaged section. And this room was designed specifically for dangerous villains. Stain stared at the reinforced walls. For the first time, his expression showed uncertainty. Inside another section of the castle, Iida was lying on a medical bed. Izuku entered. How are you feeling? Iida sat up. My injuries are serious, but... He looked around. Where are we? Inside my castle. Iida looked toward the surrounding medical equipment. You have a medical facility too? Yes. Izuku opened a cabinet. I can treat your wounds until we reach a hospital. Iida looked at him. You came here without hesitation. Izuku paused. You were in danger. You could have been killed. I know. Iida lowered his head. Thank you. Izuku nodded. You're welcome. Sirens could finally be heard in the distance. Izuku returned to the prison chamber. Stain was still inside. The police are here. Stain remained silent. Izuku opened the exit gate. We're leaving. Stain suddenly moved. But before he could step forward, another door opened beneath his feet. He fell directly into a reinforced transport chamber. Izuku closed it. I expected that. Stain glared at him through the small window. Your power is suited to controlling criminals. Izuku looked at him. It's suited to protecting people. The transport chamber moved through Izuku's internal corridors. A few seconds later, an exit opened near the police vehicles. Stain emerged safely, restrained and surrounded by officers. The police stared at Izuku. One officer looked at the prison chamber. You kept him inside your body. Izuku nodded. He couldn't escape. The officer looked at the reinforced structure. That's one way to transport a prisoner. Iida eventually emerged from the medical ward. His injuries had been stabilized. He looked toward Stain. Anger crossed his face. But Izuku placed a hand on his shoulder. Let the police handle him. Iida nodded. Understood. Stain was taken away. Izuku watched the police vehicles disappear down the street. His patrol had turned into something much bigger than expected. He had rescued Iida. He had captured the hero killer. And his castle had once again served as a shelter, hospital, and prison. Izuku looked at the entrance on his wrist. I should probably build a better prisoner transport system. Iida stared at him. You intend to improve it? Izuku nodded. Definitely. The two continued toward the agency. Neither of them noticed the growing number of cameras pointed in their direction. By the following morning, the footage of the strange young hero who had captured Stain without seriously injuring him would spread throughout Hosu City. The news about Stain's capture spread through Hosu City by the following morning. Izuku didn't pay much attention to it. He was more concerned about Iida. The other student was still recovering from his injuries, and Izuku had spent most of the morning checking the medical equipment inside his castle. The emergency ward is working properly. He checked another cabinet. Bandages, disinfectant, pain medication. He closed it. Everything is stocked. Iida watched from nearby. Midoriya, you really treat your Quirk like an entire facility. Izuku smiled. It has to be useful in emergencies. Before Iida could respond, Izuku's communicator beeped. Midoriya, Report to the agency. Izuku immediately left. The agency was unusually busy. Several pro heroes were gathered around a large screen. A recording showed Izuku capturing Stain. One hero paused the footage. Your ability to contain criminals is impressive. Izuku nodded. Thank you. Another hero pointed toward the screen. But there's a problem. The footage showed Stain disappearing through one of Izuku's doors. We don't know how much space you actually have inside your body. Izuku answered honestly. My internal structure is much larger than my external body. And how many people can you hold? Dozens. The heroes exchanged looks. One of them asked, could you carry an entire rescue team? Yes. We may have to test that later. Izuku nodded. That's fine. Later that afternoon, Izuku returned to the streets. His patrol was uneventful for several hours. Then he noticed something strange. A figure was standing on a rooftop. Izuku stopped. His eyes narrowed. The figure disappeared behind a building. Someone's following me. He opened a small door on his wrist. A surveillance device emerged. It flew toward the rooftop. Nothing. Izuku frowned. Then a blade suddenly flew toward his head. Clang. His armor appeared just in time. The blade bounced away. Izuku turned. Stain stood behind him. You. Stain's eyes narrowed. You captured me yesterday. Izuku looked confused. How did you escape? Stain didn't answer. Izuku quickly realized something. You're not the real Stain. The figure smiled. The disguise disappeared. A villain wearing a stolen hero costume stood before him. The real Stain was transferred earlier. Izuku relaxed slightly. Then why are you here? To see whether your castle can really do everything the reports claim. The villain charged. Izuku opened a door. The attacker swung his weapon. The blade disappeared inside the entrance. Izuku immediately stored it. Weapon secured. The villain reached for another. Another door opened. That weapon disappeared too. What? Izuku stepped backward. The villain attacked with a kick. Izuku raised his armored arm. Boom. The impact pushed him backward. He opened a door beneath his feet. The force disappeared into the castle. He emerged behind the attacker. Your attacks aren't going to work. The villain turned. Izuku opened 3 doors around him. The villain's position changed repeatedly. Left, right, above, below. The attacker stumbled. Stop teleporting me. Izuku shook his head. I'm not teleporting randomly. He pointed toward the ground. I'm controlling where you can stand. The villain tried to escape. Izuku opened a large entrance. The attacker jumped toward the street. The entrance appeared directly beneath him. He disappeared. Izuku closed it. Inside his castle, the villain landed in a reinforced chamber. What is this? A steel door closed. The villain rushed toward it. Boom. Nothing. He kicked again. Boom. Still nothing. Izuku's voice echoed through the chamber. You'll stay there until the police arrive. Let me out. No. The villain shouted. You can't keep me here. Izuku walked toward the observation window. I kept Stain here. The villain froze. You captured Stain. Yes. Izuku pointed toward another corridor. And this room is stronger than the one he was held in. The villain suddenly activated his quirk. His body expanded. The walls shook. Izuku immediately activated his castle's defenses. Thick armor plates covered the chamber. The villain struck the wall. Boom. The chamber shook. Izuku reinforced it. Another layer appeared. Boom. Another. Crack. A small fracture appeared. Izuku immediately sealed it. Your strength is increasing. The villain grinned. Then I'll break out. Izuku opened a second chamber around the first. The entire room shifted. The villain suddenly found himself surrounded by 2 layers of reinforced walls. Then 3. Izuku had created a prison inside a prison. Try now. The villain stared. You're insane. Izuku smiled. Probably. The villain continued attacking. Boom. 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 But every layer absorbed the impact. Izuku monitored the structure from his command room. Outer layer stable. Another screen. Second layer stable. Another. Third layer stable. He nodded. Containment successful. The police eventually arrived. Izuku opened the transport gate. The villain was transferred directly into a reinforced police vehicle. An officer stared at Izuku. You caught him without seriously injuring him. Izuku nodded. That was the goal. The officer looked toward the castle entrance. Your quirk is becoming quite famous. Izuku smiled awkwardly. I'd rather people remember the rescues. Back at the agency, Iida was waiting. Another capture. Izuku nodded. Another one. Iida adjusted his glasses. Your ability truly is suited for apprehension. Izuku opened his notebook. I've been thinking about improving the prison system. Again. Yes. He began writing. Portable prison. Multiple containment layers. Anti-quirk restraints. Emergency isolation chamber. Iida looked at the list. You really intend to turn yourself into a mobile prison? Izuku smiled. Only when necessary. Outside the agency, reporters continued gathering. The public had begun noticing something unusual about the young hero. Izuku Midoriya didn't simply defeat villains. He captured them. He transported them. He treated injured heroes. And when necessary, he could lock an enemy inside his own living fortress. His castle was becoming more than a quirk. It was becoming a complete hero system. The police convoy moved through Hosu City. Inside the reinforced transport chamber, Stain sat silently. The chamber was part of Izuku's castle. He had created several layers of steel walls around the prisoner, leaving enough space for movement but not enough for an escape attempt. Izuku walked beside Iida on the street. The police should arrive soon. Iida nodded. This entire situation has become much larger than expected. Izuku looked toward the transport vehicle. At least no one else was seriously injured. Then the vehicle suddenly stopped. Screech. Izuku immediately turned. What happened? The driver shouted. Something is blocking the road. Izuku activated his castle. Small doors opened across his arms. Stay here. He ran toward the vehicle. Several villains had appeared in the middle of the street. Move aside. One of them shouted. Izuku stepped forward. You're blocking a police convoy. The villain laughed. And what are you going to do about it? Izuku opened a door on his chest. This. The villain charged. Izuku opened a door beneath him. The attacker disappeared. He reappeared inside an empty containment room. The steel door immediately closed. 1. Another villain attacked from the side. Izuku turned. A door appeared on his shoulder. The attacker's weapon disappeared into the castle. 2. The villain stared at his empty hands. Where did it go? Izuku opened another entrance. The villain disappeared. 3. The remaining villains attacked together. Izuku's body transformed. Armor covered his arms and chest. Small cannons appeared across his shoulders. The villains stopped. What the hell? Izuku pointed toward them. Last warning. They attacked anyway. Boom. The cannons fired. The blasts weren't powerful enough to cause serious injuries, but they knocked the villains off their feet. Izuku opened several doors beneath them. One after another, they disappeared into the castle. The street became quiet again. Izuku closed the entrances. All secured. Iida walked toward him. That was efficient. Izuku nodded. The important thing is that they didn't get close to the prisoner. Iida looked toward the transport vehicle. Speaking of which, a loud impact came from inside. Boom. Izuku's expression changed. Stain. He immediately opened a door. Inside the prison chamber, Stain stood against the wall. His restraints had been damaged. Izuku entered. What happened? Stain looked at him. Your prison is strong. He pulled against the restraints. But nothing is perfect. Izuku examined the damaged equipment. You're right. Stain suddenly attacked. Izuku stepped backward. The blade struck the wall. Clang. Izuku immediately opened a door beneath Stain. Stain disappeared. He reappeared in another containment room. Izuku closed the entrance. We're not doing this again. Stain slammed against the door. Boom. Izuku reinforced it. Another layer appeared. Then another. This time, you're staying there. Stain stared at the reinforced walls. You believe strength alone makes you a hero. Izuku shook his head. No. He looked through the observation window. Strength is only one part. Stain remained silent. Izuku continued. Heroes protect people. You call these people heroes. Some are good. Some aren't. Izuku's expression remained calm. But hurting innocent people won't fix anything. Stain stared at him. For several seconds, neither spoke. Then Izuku closed the observation window. We're almost at the station. The convoy reached the police station. Izuku opened the transport gate. Stain stepped out under heavy restraint. The police immediately surrounded him. An officer approached Izuku. Midoriya, you can release him here. Izuku nodded. Understood. He opened the final door. Stain exited his castle. The moment his feet touched the ground, the door closed behind him. Several officers stared. One whispered, "That's a very unusual prison." Another nodded. But effective. Stain was taken inside. Izuku finally relaxed. Iida stood beside him. It's over. Izuku nodded. Yes. He looked down at his hands. The entire incident had tested nearly every function of his quirk. Rescue, medical treatment, combat, containment, transportation. His castle had handled all of them. But there was still one thing he wanted to improve. I need a better mobile prison. Iida sighed. Again, Izuku smiled. One that can be deployed without opening the main entrance. Iida adjusted his glasses. You already have enough rooms. There's never enough preparation. The next morning, Izuku returned to his agency. He entered his internal command room. Several blueprints covered the table. He began designing a new system. Secure subjugation chamber, automatic restraints, multiple containment layers, independent ventilation, emergency separation system. He added another section, safe prisoner transfer. Izuku leaned back. That should work. A small door opened beside him. The new chamber was completed. It was compact, reinforced, and completely isolated from the rest of his internal facilities. Izuku stepped inside. The door closed. He examined the walls. Good. Then he stepped back out. Now villains won't be able to interfere with the rest of the castle. Outside, the city continued its normal routine. Izuku looked through a window. The sun was setting over Hosu. His internship had changed significantly from what he expected. He had come here to learn from a professional hero. Instead, he had encountered one of the most dangerous villains in Japan. And his castle had proven itself capable of handling the situation. Izuku closed his notebook. But he knew his next challenge would be much larger. The forest training camp was approaching. And this time, the enemies wouldn't be attacking one city street. They would be coming for you, A's students. The forest training camp was supposed to be a peaceful opportunity for Class 1A to improve their quirks. Instead, it became a battlefield. Izuku stood among the trees with his classmates, wearing his training gear. He looked around. The forest was enormous. This place is perfect for emergency exercises. Kaminari laughed. You say that about everything. Izuku smiled. Because my quirk works better in large areas. Then a strange sound came from deeper in the forest. Crack. Izuku stopped walking. Did you hear that? The others turned. Another sound followed. Boom. Several birds suddenly flew from the trees. Izuku's expression changed. That's not part of the training. Dark figures appeared between the trees. Villains. Dozens of them. Then dozens more. The students immediately prepared to fight. Izuku looked around. Everyone, Stay together. A burst of blue fire tore through the forest. Izuku raised his arm. A reinforced castle wall appeared across his body. The flames struck it. The armor heated immediately. It's Dabi. Izuku recognized the flames. We're under attack. Another attack came from the side. Izuku opened a door. The flames disappeared inside his castle. He immediately redirected them upward. The fire exploded harmlessly above the trees. Everyone moved toward me. The students began retreating. Izuku opened several large entrances across his body. Inside, Hiroshima entered first, then Mina, Shiro, Kaminari, Momo, Juro. One after another, the students disappeared into the castle. Keep moving. A villain charged toward the entrance. Izuku opened a small door beneath him. The villain vanished. Inside the castle, he landed in a temporary holding room. Secured. Another villain attacked. Izuku opened a door on his shoulder. The attacker disappeared. Another one. Izuku continued. His body became a moving evacuation point. Students entered through his doors while villains were trapped in isolated chambers. Within minutes, most of Class 1A had been evacuated. But several students were still missing. Izuku checked his internal communication system. Bakugo. No response. Todoroki. Nothing. Tokiyami. Still nothing. Izuku frowned. They're scattered. A violent explosion shook the forest. Boom. Izuku looked toward the sound. Bakugo. He opened several entrances. I'll find them. Momo stepped forward. Midoriya. Be careful. Izuku nodded. Stay inside. He left the castle and ran through the forest. He found Tokiyami first. Dark Shadow was struggling against a group of villains. Izuku opened an entrance. Tokiyami. Tokiyami turned. Midoriya. Inside. Tokiyami and Dark Shadow entered. The door closed. One more secured. Izuku continued. Then he sensed another disturbance. A massive explosion. Boom. He turned. Bakugo was fighting several villains. Midoriya. Bakugo blasted one attacker away. Izuku opened a door. Get inside. Bakugo grinned. I don't need your protection. You do if there are 10 villains. Bakugo clicked his tongue. Fine. He entered. Izuku closed the door. Then he heard screams. Izuku looked toward the deeper part of the forest. A wave of fire spread through the trees. There are civilians. His expression hardened. He expanded his castle. Large doors appeared across his body. Everyone nearby, evacuate. He ran toward the burning area. Several camp staff members were trapped. Izuku opened the main entrance. Come inside. They rushed through. One person stumbled. Izuku caught them. You're safe. Another wave of fire approached. Izuku closed the entrance. The flames struck his armor. The outer plating turned red from the heat. Izuku immediately reinforced it. Thermal defense. Another layer appeared. The fire passed over him. The armor held. Izuku returned to the main clearing. Almost everyone was inside. He checked his internal head count. Students. All accounted for. Momo looked at the list. Everyone. Izuku paused. No. He looked toward the forest. Midoriya. There's one person missing. His expression became serious. Bakugo is inside. Then who? Izuku checked again. His eyes widened. Midoriya. A voice came from behind. It's Kota. Izuku turned. The young boy was nowhere near them. Where is he? One of the students pointed toward the mountain. He ran away earlier. Izuku immediately opened a door. I'll find him. Izuku moved through the forest. He searched every path. Then he heard a small voice. Stay away. Izuku followed it. He found Kota standing near a cliff. Muscular stood before him. Izuku's expression hardened. Move away from the kid. Muscular turned. Another student. His eyes widened. Wait. Izuku opened several doors across his body. Armor appeared. You're the one with the castle quirk. Muscular laughed. This is going to be fun. Muscular charged. Boom. His enlarged fist struck Izuku. Izuku blocked it with both arms. The impact pushed him backward. The ground cracked. Crack. Izuku looked at the damage. Strong. Muscular attacked again. Izuku opened a door. The punch disappeared inside his castle. He redirected the force into the ground. Boom. The earth exploded. Muscular laughed. That's it. He rushed again. Izuku opened another entrance. Muscular disappeared. He reappeared several meters above the ground. Izuku closed the door. Muscular landed heavily. Boom. He immediately stood. Annoying. Izuku looked at Kota. Get behind me. Kota moved. Muscular attacked again. Izuku activated his armored form. The punch struck. Boom. Izuku was pushed backward. His armor cracked. Crack. He immediately reinforced it. Muscular's eyes widened. You can repair your armor. Yes. Izuku opened several doors. Cannons emerged. And I can fight from here. Boom. 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 The attacks struck Muscular. He stumbled. Izuku charged forward. A large door appeared across his chest. Muscular rushed directly toward it. Got you. He was suddenly swallowed inside. The entrance closed. Muscular found himself inside a reinforced containment chamber. Izuku appeared outside the observation window. You're staying there. Muscular slammed his fist against the wall. Boom. The chamber shook, but held. Izuku turned toward Kota. Are you hurt? Kota shook his head. No. Good. Izuku opened the main entrance. Come inside. Kota stepped through. The door closed. Izuku looked toward the burning forest. The villains were still attacking. He couldn't evacuate everyone individually. He needed something larger. Something that could cover the entire mountain. Izuku took a deep breath. Big Father. His body began expanding. Armor spread across his frame. Massive walls rose around him. Towers emerged from his shoulders. Large gates appeared across his chest and back. The fortress grew larger and larger until the trees around him looked tiny. Students inside the castle stared through the observation windows. He's getting bigger. Momo looked at the instruments. His internal capacity is expanding too. Izuku opened every entrance. Everyone in the forest. His voice echoed across the mountain. Come to me. Large castle gates appeared throughout the forest. Students, camp staff, injured heroes, even trapped civilians. One after another, they entered. Izuku continued expanding the evacuation network. The entire forest became connected to his fortress. Dabi looked toward the enormous structure. What the hell is that? Toga stared. It's huge. Spinner raised his weapon. That's the student from U.A. Dabi narrowed his eyes. So he's turned himself into a fortress. Izuku's cannon slowly rotated toward the remaining villains. Everyone inside my castle is under my protection. The cannons locked onto their targets. Boom. The villains froze. Izuku continued. And I'm not letting you hurt them. The forest fell silent for a moment. Then the cannons fired. Boom. The villains scattered. Izuku had transformed the entire training camp into a battlefield dominated by his moving citadel. And for the first time, the villains understood that attacking the students meant attacking the fortress itself. The forest training camp had finally fallen quiet. The villains had been driven away, and the surviving students were gathered at a secure facility. But one problem remained. Bakugo had been captured. Izuku stood inside his command room, staring at the map displayed across the wall. Several locations were marked. They took Bakugo somewhere. Momo stood beside him. Can your castle locate him? Izuku shook his head. Not from this distance. Aizawa looked at him. Then we need information first. Izuku nodded. And once we know where he is, I'll bring him back. The police eventually discovered the villain's hideout. Kamino Ward. Izuku received the information while standing beside the other students. We know where Bakugo is. Bakugo's classmates immediately became serious. Hiroshima clenched his fists. We have to save him. Izuku nodded. Yes. Aizawa looked at the students. You are not supposed to participate in the operation. Izuku remained silent. He understood. But he also had another idea. I don't need to fight. Aizawa looked at him. What are you planning? Izuku opened a small door on his chest. I can transport the rescue team. Later that night, the rescue team gathered. All Might, Aizawa, several pro-heroes, and Izuku. The heroes stood inside Izuku's castle. All Might looked around. This is quite impressive, young Midoriya. Izuku nodded. Everyone needs to stay in the central command room until we reach the target. Aizawa looked toward the walls. Can you move without being detected? Yes. Izuku closed the main entrance. His external body became smaller. The castle structure folded inward. The heroes inside remained at normal size. Izuku moved through the city. Quietly. The hideout appeared ahead. Izuku stopped several streets away. He opened a tiny observation door. A small camera emerged. It moved along the street. Izuku watched the feed. 2 guards outside. Another camera moved. 4 inside. He continued scanning. Then he found him. Bakugo. Inside the building. Target located. All Might stood. Can you get us there? Izuku nodded. Yes. Izuku opened a small door. The entire rescue team stepped through. They appeared inside an empty room next to the hideout. No alarms. No explosions. No broken walls. Aizawa looked around. Perfect. Izuku whispered. We have to be quick. The team moved forward. Izuku opened another door. This one connected directly to the room where Bakugo was being held. Inside, several villains surrounded him. One villain was speaking. You're going to join us. Bakugo glared. No chance. Izuku watched through a tiny observation window. Everyone ready. All Might nodded. Aizawa prepared his capture weapon. Izuku opened the door. The villains turned. What? All Might stepped through. Hello. The villains froze. Izuku immediately opened another entrance. Aizawa entered. Then the other heroes. The villains were completely surrounded. How did they get in? Izuku opened a door beside Bakugo. Bakugo. Bakugo turned. Midoriya, come on. Bakugo stepped through. The moment he crossed the entrance, Izuku closed it. Bakugo disappeared from the villain's reach. He reappeared inside the central command room. What the hell? Izuku's voice came through the walls. You're safe. Bakugo clenched his fists. I could have escaped myself. Maybe. Izuku continued. But now we don't have to risk it. Inside the hideout, the rescue team engaged the villains. Izuku didn't need to stay. His objective was complete. He opened the main exit. Bakugo stepped outside. He looked toward Izuku. You didn't even fight. Izuku smiled. We came here to rescue you. Bakugo frowned. You just pulled me out. Yes. Without destroying anything. Yes. Bakugo looked back at the building. That's irritating. Izuku laughed quietly. But effective. Then a powerful presence appeared. The air seemed to change. Izuku immediately sensed danger. His expression hardened. Someone is coming. All Might turned. Everyone, move. A figure stepped out from the shadows. Izuku's eyes widened. All for one. Even though he had never seen the man directly before, the pressure coming from him was unmistakable. Izuku immediately opened his castle. Everyone inside. The heroes moved. All Might remained outside. Young Midoriya, take them away. Izuku hesitated. But, now. Izuku obeyed. The rescue team entered the castle. Bakugo was pulled inside as well. Izuku closed the entrance. All for one raised his hand. A powerful blast erupted. Boom. Izuku's outer armor appeared. The attack struck the fortress. The impact pushed Izuku backward. Crack. The armor fractured. Izuku immediately reinforced it. That attack is strong. Inside the castle, the heroes watched. Aizawa looked toward Izuku. Don't engage him. Izuku nodded. I'm not planning to. He opened a rear gate. The castle began moving away. All for One watched. Interesting. Another blast followed. Boom. Izuku opened a door. The attack entered the castle. A second door opened in the sky. The blast was redirected upward. Boom. All for One narrowed his eyes. Spatial storage. Izuku continued moving. He didn't need to defeat All for One. He only needed to get everyone out alive. All for One launched another attack. Izuku opened several defensive gates. The first attack struck an armored wall. Boom. The second entered a storage chamber. The third was redirected toward an empty building. Boom. Izuku continued retreating. Inside the castle, Bakugo watched through an observation window. He's running. Aizawa shook his head. He's protecting everyone. Bakugo remained silent. He understood. Izuku wasn't trying to win. He was making sure nobody was left behind. The castle finally reached the evacuation point. Izuku opened the main gate. Everyone out. The heroes exited. Bakugo stepped onto the ground. All Might looked toward Izuku. You did well. Izuku's armor slowly disappeared. He returned to his normal form. Everyone is safe. All Might nodded. That's what matters. Behind them, the distant city erupted with another massive explosion. Boom. Izuku looked toward the battlefield. All for One and All Might were still fighting. But the rescue mission had succeeded. Bakugo was free, and not a single member of the rescue team had been lost. Izuku closed his castle entrance. For once, his fortress had not been used to defeat an enemy. It had been used for something far more important. To get everyone home alive. The streets of Kamino had become a battlefield. Buildings were damaged. Smoke covered the sky. All Might stood in the middle of the ruined street, facing All for One. Izuku watched from several blocks away. Bakugo and the other heroes were already at a safe distance. Midoriya. Aizawa looked at him. Don't get involved unless necessary. Izuku nodded. Understood. But he kept watching. All for One raised his hand. Several quirks activated simultaneously. Wind, pressure, air cannon, impact enhancement. The attacks combined into one massive blast. Boom. All Might blocked it. The shockwave destroyed the remaining windows around them. Izuku's eyes narrowed. That's too powerful. All Might charged. Smash. Boom. His fist struck All for One. The villain was pushed backward. But he recovered instantly. Another barrage followed. Boom. 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 Izuku saw the attacks spreading toward the evacuation zone. No. He opened his castle. A massive gate appeared across his chest. Big Father. His body expanded. Armor spread across his frame. Towering walls emerged from his shoulders. Massive gates formed along his arms and back. Within seconds, Izuku transformed into his enormous fortress form. The heroes stared. He's going back into Big Father. All for One noticed him. Another obstacle. He raised his hand. A gigantic blast erupted. Boom. Izuku positioned himself between the attack and the evacuation zone. The blast struck Big Father. Boom. The entire fortress shook. Its outer armor cracked. Crack. Izuku immediately reinforced it. Outer wall damaged. Another blast followed. Boom. A second section cracked. Izuku reinforced that one too. All for One narrowed his eyes. So you can reinforce your body. Izuku's voice echoed from the fortress. Yes. All for One fired again. Boom. Then I'll simply destroy it. Multiple attacks struck from different directions. Boom. 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 Big Father was surrounded by explosions. The fortress shook violently. Inside, the heroes held onto the walls. Momo looked at the structural readings. Midoriya's taking the full force. Aizawa frowned. How long can he maintain this? Izuku heard him through the internal communication system. Long enough. He opened several defensive gates. The attacks were partially redirected. Some were absorbed into storage chambers. Others struck reinforced walls. The remaining force was dispersed through the fortress structure. Izuku's stamina dropped rapidly, but he refused to move. Behind him were civilians. Behind them were his classmates. He wasn't going to let the attacks reach them. All for One suddenly appeared directly in front of Big Father. His fist struck the fortress wall. Boom. The armor dented. All for One smiled. Your defense isn't absolute. Izuku looked down at him. I never said it was. A small gate opened. All for One disappeared. He reappeared several meters away. He immediately rushed back. Izuku opened another entrance. All for One was redirected again. Interesting. The villain stopped. Your body has become a spatial fortress. Izuku nodded. And you're standing inside its range. All for One's expression changed slightly. Izuku opened dozens of small gates. Which means you're fighting on my territory. All for One launched another attack. Izuku opened a gate directly in front of it. The blast disappeared. Another gate opened behind All for One. The attack emerged. Boom. All for One blocked it. Izuku continued. Another attack. Another gate. Another redirection. Boom. The villain was forced backward. All for One stared at the fortress. You aren't attacking me. Izuku's voice echoed. I don't need to. A massive gate opened beneath All for One. He disappeared. Izuku attempted to send him into a containment chamber. But All for One activated a spatial distortion quirk. The transfer failed. Izuku's eyes widened. He resisted it. All for One smiled. You aren't the only one with useful quirks. All for One attacked again. This time, Izuku couldn't redirect it completely. Boom. The blast struck the center of Big Father. The armor shattered. Crack. Izuku was pushed backward. His fortress nearly fell. Inside, several students stumbled. Midoriya. Izuku steadied himself. I'm fine. Momo looked at the monitors. Your energy is dropping. Izuku checked the readings. I know. Then stop. Izuku shook his head. If I move, the people behind me are exposed. All for One raised both hands. Several quirks activated simultaneously. Air cannon, impact recoil, spring-like limbs, strength enhancement. A massive compressed attack formed. Izuku looked at it. That's going to hurt. He opened every defensive gate. Armor covered the fortress. Internal walls locked into place. The evacuation zone behind him was completely sealed. Big Father. The fortress lowered itself. Its massive walls became a shield. All for One fired. Boom. The blast hit. The entire street disappeared beneath smoke. The shockwave traveled across Camino. Crack. Crack. Large sections of Big Father's armor broke apart. Izuku gritted his teeth. Hold. The fortress remained standing. Hold. Another section collapsed. Izuku forced the remaining structure to reinforce itself. The attack finally ended. Silence followed. The smoke slowly cleared. All for One stared. Big Father was heavily damaged. Parts of the armor were missing. Several towers had collapsed, but the fortress was still standing. Izuku stood behind the central wall. His breathing was heavy. All Might looked toward him. Young Midoriya. Izuku raised one hand. Everyone's safe. All Might nodded. Then you've done enough. Izuku looked at All for One. Not yet. He opened the central gate. Inside, the rescue team prepared. All Might stepped forward. What are you doing? Izuku smiled. Using the castle properly. The internal doors opened. Several pro-heroes moved into defensive positions. Support equipment was deployed. Medical teams prepared inside the castle. Izuku's damaged walls began repairing themselves through his quirk's internal restructuring. The fortress slowly stabilized. All for One watched. You're using other heroes as a garrison. Izuku nodded. Exactly. All for One raised his hand. Izuku opened dozens of defensive gates. The next attack vanished into the fortress. A moment later, it emerged harmlessly above the battlefield. Boom. All for One looked upward. Izuku's cannons rotated toward him. You've attacked my castle. The barrels locked into position. Now I'll defend it. Boom. The first cannon fired. All for One dodged. Another cannon fired. Boom. Then another. Boom. The fortress began advancing. Slowly. Steadily. Each step shook the ruined streets. Boom. 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 All for One watched the massive citadel approach. For the first time, he wasn't looking at a student. He was looking at a mobile fortress capable of carrying an entire army. And Izuku was ready to turn every room, every cannon, and every wall into a weapon. The ruined streets of Camino shook beneath Big Father's massive footsteps. Boom. Boom. Every step sent dust into the air. All for One stood in front of the fortress. His expression remained calm. You've built yourself an impressive defense. Izuku's voice came from the fortress. It's not just defense. Several cannons emerged from the towers. It's a command center. All for One raised his hand. Then let's see how well it commands. A massive shockwave erupted. Boom. Izuku immediately opened several gates. The attack disappeared into his fortress. Another gate opened high above the battlefield. The stored force was released into the sky. Boom. All for One frowned. Again. Another attack. Boom. Izuku redirected it. Another. Boom. Another gate swallowed it. Inside Big Father, the heroes moved between the internal rooms. Momo monitored the battlefield. Midoriya, he's changing the attack patterns. I see it. He's trying to overwhelm the gates. Izuku nodded. Then we'll change our formation. The internal walls shifted. Several cannons moved to different positions. The fortress itself reorganized. Ready. All for One suddenly disappeared. Izuku's sensors detected him. Above, All for One descended toward the central tower. Izuku opened a gate. All for One disappeared before reaching the fortress. He reappeared behind it. Another gate opened. He vanished again. Enough. All for One activated several quirks at once. His body accelerated. He moved faster than Izuku could immediately redirect. Boom. His fist struck the rear armor. The fortress shook. Crack. Izuku staggered. Rear wall damaged. Aizawa looked toward him. Midoriya, I'm fine. Izuku opened several doors. We're changing tactics. The fortress gates opened. Heroes emerged. All Might charged first. Smash. Boom. His fist struck All for One. The villain blocked the attack. The impact sent both of them backward. Other pro-heroes emerged from different gates. They surrounded All for One. Izuku remained inside the fortress. Garrison formation. The heroes moved according to his commands. All for One attacked one side. Izuku opened a gate. The attack disappeared. A hero moved through another entrance. Then another. The fortress became a constantly shifting battlefield. All for One couldn't predict where the next attack would come from. Irritating. He launched a massive blast. Izuku opened a large gate. The blast entered. Now, the gate closed. The energy was stored inside an empty artillery chamber. Izuku immediately redirected it into a cannon. Return. The cannon fired. Boom. All for One barely avoided the attack. His eyes narrowed. You stored my own attack. Izuku smiled. That's what storage is for. All for One attacked again. This time, he targeted the fortress itself. Boom. One tower collapsed. Crash. Another followed. Izuku immediately opened internal doors. Mechanical supports emerged. The damaged tower was pulled back into position. Armor plates covered the gap. Momo watched the repairs. He's rebuilding the fortress while fighting. Iida nodded. His quirk truly functions like a living structure. Izuku checked his stamina. The number was falling fast. He clenched his teeth. We don't have much time. All Might heard him. Young Midoriya, I know. Izuku looked toward All for One. We finish this now. The central gates opened. All the remaining artillery moved into position. 1 cannon, then 5, then 10, then dozens. The entire fortress bristled with weapons. All for One stared. You're going to fire everything? Izuku nodded. Yes. All for One raised his arms. Multiple quirks activated. Then I'll destroy everything. He released a massive combined attack. The sky darkened beneath the force. Wind screamed through the streets. Boom. Izuku gave the command. Fire. The fortress erupted. Boom. 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 Dozens of cannons fired simultaneously. The two attacks collided. The resulting explosion shook all of Kamino. Crack. Crack. Walls collapsed. Smoke covered the battlefield. For several seconds, nobody could see anything. Inside Big Father, warning signals sounded. External armor at 30%. Izuku remained at the command center. Continue. 20%. Continue. 10%. Momo looked at him. Midoriya, stop. Izuku shook his head. Not yet. The fortress began to break apart. Izuku opened every remaining gate. All heroes, retreat inside. One after another, the heroes returned. All Might entered last. Izuku closed the main gate. The remaining fortress concentrated its energy toward one section. The cannons stopped firing. All for One emerged from the smoke. He looked toward the damaged fortress. You've exhausted yourself. Izuku's voice came from the center. Maybe. A large gate opened. All for One looked toward it. But you're standing exactly where I need you. The ground beneath All for One opened. He disappeared. For a moment, he was surrounded by darkness. Then he emerged inside the fortress. But instead of a prison chamber, he found himself in the central artillery room. All for One looked around. What is this? Izuku stood at the far end. My final firing chamber. All for One attacked. Izuku opened a door. The villain's attack vanished. Another door appeared behind him. The attack struck his back. Boom. All for One staggered. Izuku continued. You've been fighting my walls. Several doors opened. You've been fighting my cannons. More doors. And you've been fighting the heroes inside. The entire room began shifting. But you forgot one thing. Izuku raised his hand. This is my castle. The internal structure closed around All for One. Reinforced walls appeared on every side. He tried to escape. Another wall blocked him. He attacked. Boom. The impact was absorbed. Another layer appeared. You can't hold me. Izuku looked at the control panel. Maybe not forever. He activated the final system. But long enough. The chamber compressed. All for One was forced into a reinforced containment zone. His movements became restricted. Izuku opened a final gate. All Might appeared. The number 1 hero stood beside him. Ready. Izuku nodded. Ready. All Might raised his fist. Then let's finish this. Boom. The combined attack struck All for One. The containment chamber shattered around him. All for One was thrown backward through the fortress entrance. He crashed into the ruined street. Crash. He attempted to rise. All Might was already there. One final punch followed. Boom. All for One was defeated. Silence spread across Kamino. Izuku's fortress slowly began shrinking. The towers folded. The armor disappeared. The cannons retracted. The massive walls returned to Izuku's body. He fell to one knee. All Might caught him. Easy. Young Midoriya. Izuku breathed heavily. Everyone. All Might smiled. Safe. Izuku looked toward the other heroes. Everyone was alive. Bakugo stood nearby. He stared at the ruined battlefield. That was insane. Izuku smiled weakly. It worked. Bakugo clicked his tongue. Yeah. He looked away. It worked. The police arrived shortly afterward. All for One was restrained and transported away. Izuku watched silently. His castle had suffered enormous damage. But every person inside had survived. Momo approached him. You saved everyone. Izuku nodded. The whole team did. Aizawa looked at the damaged armor around Izuku's arms. You'll need repairs. Izuku looked down. I'll rebuild it. He opened his notebook. His hands were still shaking slightly. He wrote one final line. Big Father. Full-scale siege successful. Then he closed the notebook. The Battle of Kamino was over. And the world had just witnessed something it had never seen before. A student had turned himself into a fortress, carried an entire hero team inside his body, and used his living castle to bring down one of the most dangerous villains in history. The morning after the Battle of Kamino was unusually quiet. The streets were still damaged, and construction crews had already begun repairing the buildings. Izuku sat inside a hospital room. His arms were covered in bandages. He looked down at his hands. My body is fine. A doctor shook his head. Your body may be fine, but your quirk consumed an enormous amount of energy. Izuku nodded. I understand. The doctor left. Izuku looked toward the window. Outside, reporters were gathering. Everyone wanted to see the student who had turned himself into a gigantic fortress during the battle against All for One. Later that day, Izuku was discharged. All Might was waiting outside. Young Midoriya. Izuku smiled. All Might. All Might placed a hand on his shoulder. You did something extraordinary. Izuku shook his head. Everyone helped. Perhaps. All Might smiled. But your castle gave everyone a place to fight from. Izuku looked toward the damaged city. It also gave everyone a place to hide. Exactly. Back at you. The students returned to their normal classes. The atmosphere had changed. Everyone had witnessed the battle. Everyone knew how close they had come to disaster. Izuku entered the classroom. The students immediately turned toward him. Kirishima raised his fist. Midoriya. Izuku stopped. Yeah, that fortress was incredible. Kaminari nodded. Seriously. You had an entire command center inside yourself. Mina laughed. And those cannons. Bakugo clicked his tongue. Don't encourage him. Izuku smiled. I'm still improving it. Bakugo looked at him. Of course you are. Momo approached with a notebook. I've been thinking about your internal facilities. Izuku looked interested. What about them? You should create dedicated rescue areas. Izuku immediately opened his own notebook. Medical wards. Yes. Momo continued. And emergency sleeping quarters. Iida joined the conversation. Perhaps a communication center as well. Izuku began writing rapidly. Communication center. Ochaco smiled. And maybe a cafeteria. Izuku stopped. A cafeteria? If you're going to carry everyone inside you, they need somewhere to eat. Izuku considered it. That's actually a good idea. Bakugo stared at them. You people are seriously planning to build a whole city inside him. Izuku looked at his notebook. Not a city. He paused. Yet, Bakugo's eye twitched. Months passed. Izuku continued developing his quirk. His internal castle became larger and more organized. The medical ward was expanded. The command room gained more communication equipment. The storage rooms became more efficient. The prison system received multiple layers of security. He even created specialized evacuation halls. During rescue training, Izuku could now open enormous entrances and bring dozens of civilians inside within seconds. The teachers were impressed. The students were already accustomed to using his castle as a safe zone. One afternoon, a training accident occurred. A support machine malfunctioned. Boom. Students scattered. Izuku immediately opened his main gate. Everyone inside. Class 1A moved without hesitation. Students entered the castle. The entrance closed. The machine exploded outside. Boom. Inside, Everyone remained unharmed. Izuku checked the internal monitors. Everyone okay? Yes. Izuku smiled. Good. Aizawa watched from outside. He shook his head. He's turned his quirk into an evacuation system. Izuku eventually received his provisional hero license. His hero name was announced publicly. The Citadel Hero. Big Father. Izuku stood before the cameras. A reporter asked, Midoriya, what does being a hero mean to you? Izuku thought for a moment. Protecting people. The reporter smiled. And what makes your quirk special? Izuku looked toward the castle gate on his arm. It can carry people. He opened a small entrance. So when danger comes, the gate closed. They don't have to face it alone. His reputation continued growing. Disaster response agencies requested his assistance. Rescue teams began studying his castle. Pro heroes trained inside his internal facilities. During major emergencies, Izuku became one of the first heroes dispatched. Fires, building collapses, villain attacks, earthquakes. Everywhere he went, his castle became a shelter. One entrance could evacuate dozens of people. One internal medical room could treat the injured. One armored wall could protect them from falling debris. And when necessary, the fortress could become a weapon. Years later, Izuku stood on top of his largest fortress form. Big Father had become enormous. Its towers reached above the surrounding buildings. Its walls were reinforced with advanced support equipment. Multiple cannons were mounted along the outer structure. Inside were hospitals, command rooms, storage facilities, rescue equipment, and accommodation areas. Izuku looked across the city. His communicator activated. Citadel Hero. Emergency call. Izuku answered. Location. Industrial district. Building collapse. Civilians trapped. Izuku immediately moved. I'm on my way. The fortress began walking. Boom. 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 People looked toward the approaching citadel. Rescue workers smiled. They knew help had arrived. Izuku reached the collapsed building. He opened dozens of gates. Everyone inside. Rescue workers entered. Civilians followed. Injured people were transported directly into the medical ward. Izuku reinforced the surrounding structures. He lifted broken sections of the building using his fortress walls. Within minutes, everyone had been rescued. A child looked around the internal castle. Are we inside the hero? Izuku crouched nearby. Yes. The child smiled. Your castle is cool. Izuku laughed. Thanks. That evening, Izuku returned to UA. His classmates were waiting. Ochaco smiled. Another successful rescue. Izuku nodded. Everyone survived. Iida raised his hand. Excellent. Momo smiled. Your rescue system continues to improve. Bakugo crossed his arms. Don't get too proud. Izuku smiled. I won't. He looked toward the city. The castle on his arm slowly disappeared. But the fortress remained ready inside him. A mobile shelter. A hospital. A command center. A prison. And, when necessary, an unbreakable weapon. Izuku Midoriya had started as a boy who simply wanted to become a hero. Now, the world knew him as something else. The Citadel Hero. Big Father. Wherever disaster appeared, his castle would arrive. And behind its walls, people would always have somewhere safe to stand.